Okay, welcome to Street Talk for this week, where we have got 6 storylines to chat about today. Although 2 of them are going to take the lion's share, I think. Everything else is a little bit small. So we're going to talk about Showing Privates Ryan first, which I just came up with on the drive back. Showing Privates Ryan is going to be Ryan's his endeavour into OnlyFans, or Ovids as it's called in Weatherfield. It makes it sound like it's something eggy.
No, to me it sounds like Ovids. It sounds like it's specifically for women to perv on men because it's like ovaries.
Yeah.
And it's like ovary videos.
Maybe.
It's videos to stimulate your ovaries.
What does the O stand for in Ovids? Is it, oh my god.
Ooh, I say.
Ooh, I say, Vince.
Ooh, I say. Somebody needs to make a cut of Ryan's videos and photos with
Hildegard. I could do that.
Do it. Right.
Right, next up we're going to be doing serious story. Not that the other one isn't, but poor Paulie Paul, and he's been falling over quite a lot this week, hasn't he?
Don't you flip
I'm not doing so good. But we had the Pride stuff on Friday, which was nice.
Too much Pride stuff, shoving it in my face. I can't believe Coronation Street is so gay. Can you?
No, I can't believe somebody tweeted us this morning saying that. It's like,
I can't. Why? Like, okay. I was totally expecting loads of homophobic moaning.
I wasn't.
I wasn't expecting it to be directed at us.
So what did somebody at us with that?
As though, like, we control it or that we disapprove. It's like,
yeah. Stiff competition is going to be next, which is the that could be sound a bit rude as well. Todd's moving to a new job with Rest Easy. I don't really like the next storyline title, but it's the best I could up with. So you know 60s/70s. I don't really know. Double act, famous for "I Got You, Babe," Sonny and Cher.
Yeah.
So this storyline with Ronnie, I'm calling Ronnie and Cher because he's got Cher's in Newton and Ridley.
Okay, I'll accept it.
Thank you. Cassie Come Home comes next, and then we have got Reed and the Redhead revisited. Oh. Finally, the wheels are moving for this romance, which has obviously got disaster written all over it, but I'm glad it's actually happening. Would you like me to do Showing Privates Ryan first, Joa? As this is obviously the manliest story of them all.
This actually, right, I know it's supposed to make me uncomfortable, but I think Corey's done a really good job of kind of like making it uncomfortable, but also I'm sure loads of people just watched it because they were perfect. What
was that? Was it Wednesday when they had the after the break ident, and it was this close up of Ryan's pecs and the belt and the weights coming up to it, just with Coronation Street splattered over the screen. Like, come on, you know what you were doing there.
The way that all the women were talking about him is the way that men...
And Sean.
Okay, and Sean. Is the way that men usually talk about women, and it's so much more... It's so accepted, but when it's the other way around, it kind of makes you think a bit more and realise how gross and demeaning it really is. I know that lots of guys understand now that that's not acceptable. There are still a massive amount of men who would say the same things that were being said to Ryan to women without realising how horrible and unpleasant it is.
It's funny because I think that they're, like you said, mixing the shock value with the titillation with the humour fairly well.
They're doing a really good job. I think.
But that scene which had Sean and Glenda and was it Daisy, I think, kind of perving over him, ogling his pictures in the Rovers the other day.
Daisy wasn't.
No, she wasn't. She was like
she was just there.
But it didn't come across as like, oh, look at these dirty pervs.
Preachy.
It wasn't preachy. It wasn't creepy. But I don't know whether they could have that the other way around. So if it had been, one of the girl cast members who'd been forced to, no, this isn't even the Ovids, was it? Who was putting up these scantily clad pictures as herself. If they'd have had, who might it have been, Kevin and Ed going, oh, look at that Daisy with her top off. Whoa.
Yeah, it would have been
would have been really uncomfortable. So it's odd to me how... I don't really care. I didn't watch the video going, goodness me, how shocking. But it's funny how you can have those characters there making those comments about Ryan, but I don't think you could get away with that if they'd have had the guy characters.
But I just really want...
to a girl.
I just really want it to be clear that it's gross both ways. And this is Corey doing stuff that I've been hoping that they would do. Getting characters that we like, saying things that are not nice or unacceptable and not really realising how gross and problematic it is.
I don't think it's that bad.
Well, I know you don't.
People are going to look at the sexy people on the internet, and he wasn't like he was getting his willy out and they were all looking at that. That comes later. You got to pay for that. People will look at people they fancy on the internet and go "for" to their mates.
I know, and people enjoy showing off too. But this is a story where Ryan is forced into something that he's crying about. He was crying when he was doing this. He didn't want to do it. Did you not? Do you not see the difference?
Yeah. I get it. I think he was crying more about the keks off stuff than the pecs out, and that was what they were. But this is showing that I think we're all okay with saying that. Oh, it's always fun and wonderful. Isn't it great? There's a lot of support and sex positivity for people who are interested in, showing off or being sexy. This country's had page 3 girls for so long. The normalising sort of, what's the word? I can't think of a nice way of saying this. Normalising objectifying people has been part of this country's culture and many other countries for years. But this is a different side of it, isn't it? Mm-hmm. Because Ryan wouldn't have chosen to have done this unless he had issues that he's working through, aka he feels unattractive and he wants attention, and also he needs money, so he's basically selling his body for money and he doesn't want to. And then you get all the comments of people, he doesn't like any of the comments. He doesn't like the people who know him going, "For, I liked your torso pics," and he also doesn't like people who don't know him talking about it. He didn't mind them at the beginning, and that's why he started, because when that picture of him leaked online a couple of weeks ago, true. He saw the comments there and is like, oh, maybe I could.
But he's realising it's empty. It's like an empty. It doesn't lead anywhere good, because you get these positive comments, but then you want more of them and they want more of you, and you're never going to be able to give them everything they want. You're never going to be the perfect person.
He's probably screaming inside, why can't these people love me for my brains or my top DJing skills?
If only I could project my brain into this picture, they would love that.
Right, let's...
Obviously, I have a completely different perspective on this than lots of people, and that's totally fine. But I thought Corey did a really good job this week of balancing that kind of light-hearted feel with this very dark and uncomfortable situation that Ryan's in. And I'm
Yeah, I did as well. I found this story to be quite engaging this week.
But for all that Corey's quite progressive, it does have quite a conservative view of sex work. I mean, my personal opinions aside, the way that they portrayed, I've forgotten the name, Nikki, and Cardigan now Ryan, Nikki. who's kind of selling pictures of his genitals on the internet. They both didn't like what they were doing. They both hated what they were doing, and it was affecting their lives on many different levels in a very negative way. Yeah, they were getting money for it that they couldn't get anywhere else, but it was like selling their souls, wasn't it? It wasn't a nice thing for them. I was saying to you yesterday, can you imagine how much people would lose their minds if Ryan was like, signed up for OnlyFans, got £1,000 in a week, and I'm loving it, I'm enjoying every single minute, everything is great for me. Can you imagine?
I mean, I can only see this storyline ending with him being shamed in some way when a picture leaks. Or just realising
that he doesn't want to do it anymore. Yeah, or just having his own stalker or something like that. But yeah, I don't think people are ready for Corey to do a story where somebody sells pictures of themselves online and has just a brilliant time. Because there are people that are like that. It's not always sad and tragic, but I don't think that Corey could. I just don't think they could do that type of story, because it would. Would it be irresponsible? I don't know. Let's get on. Sorry, I know I jumped straight into the discussion.
It's fine. Usually with the first story of the week, it's there because it's the one that elicits the most discussion, and sometimes we get into that before we do the synopsis. So we're starting on Monday, and I did not really enjoy Monday's Coronation Strat. I think it was in another one where I was in a bit of a grumpy mood when I watched it, but it really was misery laden Mondays, I thought. But as for Paul, it's starting off with Peter saying, right, Ryan, you need to pay the rent. So this is the catalyst for what goes on this week. I felt that it probably could have been done a little bit more subtly than it was like, you need to pay the rent straight away. Oh, I'm going to take my clothes off then. I get that that's
No.
why he's doing it, but it clicked together a little bit too neatly storyline wise.
He was offered money before. The only thing that was too soon, as far as I'm concerned, is how quickly he got the money.
Well, yeah.
It instantly, he sold a picture of himself, and then 3 minutes later, he had £20 note in his hand. Where did that come from?
The way that they showed it, was it Wednesday's episode and they had the little stars dinging up on his homepage?
Yeah.
I don't think it works like that. Not that I've got an Overbids account myself,
can I just say,
when we have our money come through on our Patreon, on our YouTube, it doesn't have little stars with dings saying, well done, you made 1p.
Yeah, I mean, perhaps my opinion on this should be completely disregarded because I'm just horribly jealous. I wish that we could sell pictures of ourselves for 20. How much did he get in a day? It probably is like working up to a grand.
We gave Carla 30 quid on Friday, I think. Didn't
Steak and red wine in what for one picture?
I know.
Where's our Ovids?
Right, so Ryan's saying he's going to get some extra shifts at the bistro to try and pay this rent off. Obviously, he goes in a slightly different direction. Later on, Ryan surprises Carla by saying that he's looking into getting more shifts. Oh, I just said that already.
Watch your hand because you're going to knock my coffee.
Sorry, I'm just gesticulating.
Michael's waving his hands all over the place.
What's going on about? Carla. Oh yeah, that's right. Before Ryan told Peter, I'm going to get some extra shift work. This is when he's talking to Carla later, and she's pretty annoyed that Peter's been confiding in him about their dire financial situation, which partly involves owing all that money back to Lou. And then Ryan gets a beep on his phone, and he looks a bit worried about this. Carla spots it. He says it's just a DM from some girl, but he's very reluctant to go into details. And Carla says, oh, it's nice that you chat with people online and meeting up with new people. And he's like, I'm not ready for meetups yet. But this is obviously somebody who's been interacting with in a bit of a sexy way online. And that he's getting these unrequested requests for nakedness. So he's chatting with some girl online later. Everyone's desperate to see his face, aren't they?
Who's that girl?
So far, and in his account name online is Buffin' My Bedroom.
Is it?
Yeah.
Buffin' what?
What? Buffin' is nice.
Oh, Buffin' something.
He's faceless, and she says, well, if you're not going to show me your face, why don't you drop your keks and show me what you got? And he's like, not too sure about that. But the person messaging him is like, no, go on, you can make lots of pound signs for this kind of thing. And you're right, he doesn't instantly do it. It doesn't take a whole lot of persuasion. It's over the course of a couple of scenes, but I think they did a fairly good job of him showing, like, I really, really don't want to do this. And he's like pacing about his room, isn't he? He's saying, well, how much money can you get for this? And she says, well, it depends how much you're willing to show me. And then the final scene on Monday episode for him is him dropping his flies. So, not dropping his flies. Yeah, undoing his flies, or unbuttoning, or however it is. So, did you think that came too quickly? Was he persuaded? Or I wonder whether the idea had already come into his head before he was asked, and this was just
I don't know,
the tipping point he needed.
I wanted just to say to this woman, whoever she is, that if you want dick pics on the internet, it's fairly easy to get them for free.
Well, it is. Is there something a little bit more exciting and titillating about talking to somebody and seeing their willy?
I don't know.
Because you can, it's probably not very difficult at all if she wants to see that. I think,
I am not going to speculate on this. None of this makes sense to me. I don't understand why you'd pay money for. I think it's a bit. My personal. I don't really like this at all.
You just don't appreciate the male form, Gemma, do you? Let's just be.
I don't. I'm not.
Let's just get
I'm
it out
not
there.
Being judgy about it. I'm just being honest about my personal opinion about it. I understand that everyone else has a different opinion, or lots of people do have a different opinion, but not for me, I say.
I just hope, because, Ryan was sprung on him. I hope he was presentable down there.
Well, I don't know. Maybe she likes that.
Well, I don't know. Has there been a bit of shaving privates, Ryan?
Maybe you get extra. Oh my God, I bet you could sell the photo of that, or the video of that happening. I don't want to think about it.
Well, there's also the fact, which somebody posted on Facebook, that, steroids combined with, you might get a bit of a shrinky winky.
Really?
Yeah, that's the side effect.
Wow. Okay.
Maybe this is where the storyline's going to go down.
Well, we've already got a nice
the bigger he
storyline
gets
title for
online,
it.
the smaller he gets in the old winky department.
Oh, don't show your winky to strange women.
She was probably a perfectly lovely
It
lady.
should only be a precious gift for your wife on your wedding night.
Anyway, that's where he's left on Wednesday. It's all very dark and everything. But then Wednesday, Ryan's there on his phone. He's like, oh, what's my messages coming through? He's probably feeling next day guilt over the whole thing. But also thinking about this money that he's going to have coming in. And Carla and Peter says, look, can you go out and do some shopping today? Steak. They decide to have a cheap steak. And Ryan's getting more and more embarrassed about sponging off of them, which is more fuel for him wanting to show his little soldier, as Glenda, I think, puts it.
It must be very infantilising to be sort of chucked 30 quid because you don't have any money to buy dinner for everybody. I didn't mean it. Carla and Peter don't mean it like that at all. And it really does. It's one of those situations where you can take offence or not take offence, I guess. But he is in such a low place that it just feels everything is kind of wounding his pride.
Yeah.
And so he looks at this money and he just thinks, I don't want handouts. I want to earn my money with my
Well,
willing.
at the same time, he's getting these messages from someone saying, look, are you sure you don't want to go through the whole Ovids thing? Because at this point, he's just he's done private pics, hasn't he? He's not signed up for the website until midway through Wednesday's episode, and this is kind of helps him to make that decision to sign up for an account.
I'm just I wonder here, because if you're gonna do this sort of thing and keep it anonymous, you've got to be really careful, because people are gonna match up your backgrounds, and if you've got any like moles or anything, they'll know it's you, because he's got one account everybody knows about, and then he's got this Ovid account he's keeping private.
I think it's really, really risky. That's why he's gonna have to be found out at some point.
But
somebody's gonna. I'm wondering, like, this Liv person that's been messaging him this week.
Is it definitely Liv?
Yeah, Liv. I'm wondering whether is Liv somebody we already know. That could be quite a twist. That somebody who has, is Liv Glenda? Is Liv Sean? I don't think there's anybody on the street that's got a name close to it. There's no Olivers or sorry, R.I.P. Ollie, or whatever that it could be. But that could be a bit of a twist. That's revealed to be somebody we know all along.
But the thing is, there's so much more stigma against women for using pornography or paying for pornography. So if a character turned out to be using Ovids and paying men for sexy pictures and videos, that would, I think, be a difficult sell for the character to remain as popular.
He did his gay for pay thing on Friday's episode, didn't he? When he had
yeah, it could be a man, but I think there's a difference between going, I like your saucy muscles, they're very sexy, you're a great guy, than going, here's 50 quid for I want to see your winky.
I don't know. Anyway,
I like I said before, I really like it when Corrie challenges you and gives the characters gives them something negative to say, because it makes them more complicated and interesting characters. But I think any character, it's not just women too. Like, it's more normalised for men, but any guy, like if it turned out to be Ed, everyone would be like, what an old pervert. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's also to do with how attractive you are yourself too. Because if you're a young, kind of good-looking person, people don't mind you being sexy or talking about sex or being positive about sex. But the older you get and the more unattractive you are, people are like, ew, oh, you shouldn't be talking or thinking about sex because you're
Tell you what, maybe it's Evelyn.
Unattractive.
Evelyn, Liv. They're not worlds apart, are they?
Oh my God, can you imagine?
She's a lonely
Do you
old
know what?
woman since
She's probably the only...
Paul Coakley left her a few years ago.
She's probably the only character that could still maintain her charisma after being outed as some kind of fetishist.
Yeah, I think you're right. Anyway, so he goes over to the pub later. Daisy's cleaning the windows.
Always cleaning those
the
damn
sparkliest
windows.
windows in the West. And she's saying, look, I'm moving. She's planning to move into Toya's old flat, isn't she, today, her and Daniel? We were just talking about that the other day, and the fact that it was mentioned a month ago that they may do it and nothing's happened since. Well, today is the day, but before she can reveal this information to him, there's a pipes emergency inside and Sean's spilling beer all over the place. So Ryan goes in and helps fix it. Sean's like, oh, you should come back work here full time. And he's like, no way, I don't want to scare the punters with my horrible face. I'm going to start... Anyway, I'm starting earning from my Instagram account, or send pics or whatever. And this is when Sean kind of starts making jokes, and he says that he knows somebody who makes money off of Ovid, so clearly it's
like their version of OnlyFans, because that is the place to go. I know that it's not only porn, but I think it mostly is, isn't
Wasn't there a thing, because I think the first time I'd heard of OnlyFans is when they decided that they weren't going to allow porn on it, and everyone's like, hang on a minute, that's the main point of it. That's the main point of it. It is actually, so they went back on it.
It started off as a version of Patreon.
Right.
But we already had Patreon, but I can just imagine us, if we hadn't already had Patreon, going, oh, maybe we should try OnlyFans, and then ending up on this porn site. Yeah, it is a version of, it's like Patreon, but Patreon, I think, is quite strict with their adult content, so this place...
Yeah.
I don't know, I mean...
Less so.
I don't know. I don't think I've ever been on it. I saw there was a lady who was a cook who was on it, and she said, like a not a celebrity chef, but like a chef influencer or something. And she's like, oh dear.
When you think of OnlyFans now, you don't think of anything other than people paying to see celebrities or Z-listers or whoever getting their kicks off.
Yeah,
that's what it's turned into now. Yeah. But Ryan says, no way, I would never do that. But on his way back home, he bumps into Daniel, and this is where he hears about them moving into Victoria Street. And he's like, oh, I'm so happy for you. But he's pretty miffed because he wants Daisy out of his life. I don't know, I'm still not sure.
It's too painful for him to watch her living a happy life with Daniel, and especially when Daniel was saying, oh, we're going to have a spare room for a nursery, and he doesn't want to think about
I don't really see what the difference is between that, and she's still going to be working at the pub. So what, that she's going to be living around the corner? I don't know, but whatever. It's what gives him the incentive to get his
I was
trousers
convinced,
off of cash.
But during this week, that at some point he's going to end up living with Daisy and Daniel.
Oh, what?
Because there's a spare room.
Peter kicks him out.
And as soon as somebody on Coronation Street says, oh yeah, we have a spare room, I'm like, not for long, you don't. Someone's going to be sleeping in there before you know it.
Yeah, maybe.
That would be so awkward, but that is exactly the sort of stupid, unself-aware thing that Daniel would do. And then Daisy would go along with it because she's lost a backbone recently. And then Ryan be creeping about, taking photos of saucy photos in what is to one day be a child's nursery. Can't imagine.
So then we have a few scenes of the characters talking about Ryan's abs and everything, and Ryan gives a bottle of wine, doesn't he? Because this is what he's been sent out to do the shopping for Carlo, and he ends up giving the wine to Daisy.
No, Daisy comes round to see him. That happens.
Oh yes, that's right.
So Daisy, Sean, and Glenda are in the pub.
Yeah, that's right. And Daisy
like,
says, "Oh, I don't think he'd be doing this unless he's desperate. I'm going to go and see him." I've not had a Seymour. I've come up to Ryan's flat for a good month and a half or so. Let's revisit that.
Talking also. She's like, the influencer lifestyle it doesn't lead anywhere good.
Yeah.
And Sean and Glenda just completely openly just oogling.
Yes, that's right. He goes round to her. She goes round to his flat. Yeah. He gives her the wine, and then kind of kicks her out as soon as he can, because he says that he's waiting to hear a call. He's trying to get a call about a job, and she's like, "Oh, I'm so proud of you. Well done." So Ryan at this point has decided, I've got no choice here. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna get my kicks off. He sits down. He's crying, like you said. He's not loving doing this. Starts to sign up for an Ovid's account because if Daisy's living across the street, what else would you do?
This is the shot. Oh, this is a shot, isn't it? On Wednesday after the break, we get this kind of like really.
It was a bit like, let's get physical.
Well, it had what's the light called? The beam of light that behind his chest, and it was a real close up. This one's for the grandmas.
For Evelyn, isn't it? Apparently, yeah. And he's pumped himself up. He holds the camera up to himself and says, "Stand by for action." But he's not loving it. But you can see that he knows that, he's when he was holding the camera up, he does know that he's got a good bod there, and he's not gonna be repulsing anybody with what he's about to show. And he's kind of thinking that, I probably could get a bit of money from it, and that's what I need at the moment. But we don't obviously get to see any of this. We just see him sort of pulling his trousers up later, and he gets a message from Liv saying that she wants more, and he's like, plenty more where that came from, and then falls backwards on his bed. And that's kind of a, well, what have I done kind of shot.
What have I become?
Yeah.
I'm just a sexy man on the internet.
There's a scene where Daisy and Daniel are sort of going over the threshold into the flat, and he says, I'll get a message, I'll get you all to myself now, and she says, what do you mean by that? So he's still clearly holding on to some bit of annoyance of her and Ryan together, but she manages to explain herself out of it pretty well somehow, and so that kind of is parked for a while. Then we have a scene with Glenda and Ryan. She sees him and says, I've just seen your stuff, what you're doing is great. And obviously they're supposed to be for a second there. We think, hang on a minute, you signed up to Rovers, Glenda.
The way she says stuff is a very, what's the word? Provocative. Like the way she says it in kind of a clandestine, like, I've seen your stuff.
She's clearly just seen his abs pics again. And she says, I'm the sort of person that would go too far and end up regretting it, because Ryan clearly needs some motivation to have regrets about what he's done. But he's on his laptop later, and this is when we see the money start coming in, so good for him. And then he can give Peter and Carla £30 and offer to cook the tea as well. So they're eating their dinner later, and he says, I gave the wine to Daisy, I'll pay you back for it. I'm doing quite well. I've become an online fitness instructor.
No, influencer.
Yeah. So I'll be able to start paying you a more regular.
There are loads of people like this on Instagram. They're fitness influencers. Yeah. And we know what you're doing.
But yeah, how many of those are bulked up on roids? Because that's what he's doing at the end of the episode. He's got a nasty bruise on his bum, hasn't he? On his injection spot.
Well, was it this day that he got that comment saying, he needs more meat on his bones? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was, wasn't it? Yeah, people saying that he's looking too skinny. So he starts pumping himself up a little bit more. Friday comes, and we get a visit from Simon round the flat. Simon got, 3 scenes maybe this week, I think? Making me wonder, what's going on there? It wasn't even clear to me why Simon even came round Peter and Carla's flat. Was it just to have a cup of coffee?
Well, I don't know.
Because as soon as Simon came in, Peter and Carla was like, anyway, we're going off to work.
It's like, you couldn't be more clear that they don't like him.
Yeah. And Simon makes a comment about Ryan never coming out of his room, and he kind of gives a worried look across there, but then he doesn't have anything else to do with it.
I don't know whether there was a bit of jealousy there. Where's Simon living?
I think he's living with mates at the moment. I don't think
is he?
Yeah, I don't think he's with Nick and Leanne anymore. Because I think Toya's in his old room.
Yeah, I wonder whether he's jealous of how much time Ryan's spending with his dad. And why is he there? That should be my room.
They didn't show enough of it.
It was a weird look. I don't know why he gave that look, and I couldn't work it.
It was to me. It was just kind of look of with anyone who's involved in this storyline is supposed to be showing a bit of concern for Ryan at the moment, so maybe I'll give a worried look towards his bedroom, and maybe then I'll be part of it.
But I don't think Simon's mature or experienced enough to really... He's only just come out of being a teenager himself. Why is he going to be like, Ryan shouldn't be spending all day in his bedroom. Look at how sunny it is outside. He should go for a walk. That's the sort of thing you say when you're 30.
He should be out eating chips with Kirk in the park like I'm going to do.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Why would a boy who's just been a man who's just been a teenager be concerned about somebody spending too much time? He's probably thinking, I bet he's getting through some tissues in there. I might need a poo later. I hope that there's enough left in the house.
Disgusting. Ryan comes to the factory later on, and Beth's like, "Where's my pick of the day? Where's my torso of the day? Ryan, come on."
See, it's supposed to be all in good fun and everything, but I just find it just as gross as when men do it. It's just. But the thing is, like, she's reacting to what he's putting out there. That's the thing. How's she supposed to know he's a tortured soul?
Yeah.
It's all supposed to be in good fun.
This reminds me, I was a little bit confused about what day Friday's episode was supposed to be set on.
I think it was supposed to be a weekend.
Why were they at work? Because Pride is obviously Saturday. It's going on as we speak, I think.
Is it only Saturday?
Yeah, I don't think it's on Friday. Nobody else seemed to be at work during the episode. I mean, it's not often that Corey really ever needs an excuse for why is a character here and not at work. If they want them to be off, then why not? It was also, Lily's birthday is today as well, and she was celebrating her 10th birthday. On the Saturday. So I think maybe it was supposed to be
rare
Saturday. But yeah, I don't get why factory people at work. But never mind, it doesn't matter. So Ryan's a bit annoyed by this. Goes back home, gets a request for a full body and face shot, which he refuses. And then there's something with Carla and Sarah in the cafe. That was not.
Oh, they were talking about being stressed out again. This is Carla taking on too much responsibility, maybe. And Roy and Peter are both very concerned for her mental health, and she's telling them she's fine.
But she needs the money. Then we see Ryan, earlier on in that episode, I think it was, or maybe it was Wednesday, he takes a picture of himself holding a bottle. I think it was after Beth says, "Where's your picture of the day?" And he just goes and holds a picture up saying, "Here you go, Beth." But his bad arm, where he got his skin graft from, is visible, isn't it? And somebody's commented, "He's so hot, he's melted," which Ryan doesn't appreciate.
He doesn't get the joke.
No, he doesn't get it, does he?
It's funny how sensitive he is.
And Carla's, he starts to kind of get a bit mad about this. And Carla says, "Look, don't worry, everyone in the factory says it's a nice picture." And then this is when his roid rage comes out again. He chucks a glass at a wall and starts moving in on Carla.
Yeah, yelling at her.
Yeah,
right in her face.
"You and your nosy factory lot, keep your nose out of my business." And then Peter, very handily and coincidentally,
Peter, the salty sea dog,
happens to be walking there. This is where they should have had Simon.
This is in the flat.
I hate it so much when people just happen to be walking in. Why couldn't Peter have just been in another room in the flat and heard the commotion? That would have made more sense than I just happen to have timed my return to the flat exactly at the moment when my wife is getting intimidated by the lodger. It didn't make sense. Anyway, so he grabs Ryan, pushes him against the wall.
He just didn't it was too coincidental.
Yeah, and says, "Look, you need to back off. What's going on with you?" And Ryan says, "Look, well, you need to keep your nose out of my business. I'm going to move out." So,
I mean, the contradiction here is that he's putting his business online and then complaining that people are talking to him about his business.
Well, exactly. Carla and Peter are in Ryan's bedroom later, and they're sort of talking about. Well, Peter wants to kick him out, doesn't he? Because he doesn't like what's going on here.
Peter's literally taking his stuff out of drawers and throwing it into to pack it away to get rid of him, and he doesn't notice. He picks up some clothes, and underneath are all the syringes, and he doesn't look and doesn't see.
Yeah, there's been a few close calls with that, which makes me think that's going to be discovered sometime soon.
Carla's not going to let him
go. The thing is, though, how much does Ryan need to be living with them at the moment?
He's only just started earning money, Michael.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sure he could find somewhere else.
In real life, it can be difficult if you are making money from online stuff, especially if it's something that's not very socially accessible, like OnlyFans, to prove your income to somebody, to be able to get somewhere to rent. That's not going to come up in Coronation Street, but that would be something that I think it would be realistic for Coronation Street to look, to talk about. The fact that some people just won't let you live there because they're, they have concerns about your ability to pay, but also because there's stigma against it, but also because the people are probably thinking, well, I don't want you to rent this bedroom, and who knows what you're going to be doing in it. Yeah. You're going to be inviting people in and stuff. If
I was Ryan, I'd be trying to find somewhere else to live as soon as I could at the moment.
I think
because you don't want people walking in on you. He's had a few close shaves already.
He needs a bloody lock on his door.
Yeah, I know. Anyway, he comes back to the flat later. He's all apologetic and teary, and he says, "Oh, I don't even know what I was doing. Comment just really got to me. You're the last person I'd attack,
Which
Carla."
means he's the first person he's going to attack.
Yeah. And Peter says, "Look, there's no place for aggression like this here, though. This can't happen again."
I really liked how Peter was so calm, but direct, wasn't he? He was like, "You're not going to ever do that again."
Yeah.
I love that. I thought he was very, what's the word? Imposing.
Looking up from his paper, making
he's
a
like
bit of a
casual.
threat.
He's like, and he's also like, I can wipe the floor with you. I don't know if he could though. He managed to wrestle him against the wall, but if Ryan keeps roiding out and getting super strong and working out all the time, and he's younger, I think Peter would get decked.
I think Peter's maybe been sneaking into Ryan's room every now and then.
That's why he didn't mention it.
Yeah, borrowing his dumbbells.
But yeah, well, I mean, Ryan needs to do a deal with Peter for some sexy tussling videos. I bet there'd be plenty of people watching a silver fox having a go at
I bet there would
fight
be.
with a young buck.
So
he needs to pay off that 15 grand watch bill he's got. Peter, get yourself on Rovers. I know there are people on our Facebook group that would definitely sign up.
Absolutely. So I'm enjoying where this story's going at the moment. When I first sort of saw that this is where the direction it was going in, I thought it would probably be a little bit too seedy and weird, and like that's not Corrie enough for me. But I'm actually quite enjoying it because I want to see how far Corrie can push it. And I'm interested.
You want to see whether you can get a picture?
Well, obviously, it's not going to go anywhere near racy. Is it one of these things where, because Corrie's pre-watershed, they can't give it full justice? And I don't mean they're not going to show the whole thing.
Is that what you call a picture of someone's willy? Full justice.
You know, the chats that Ryan's having with these people online are all fairly tame, aren't they?
Yeah. Yeah, it's all pre-watershed stuff, even though, you know, because we're talking about this on a podcast, we're getting strikes against us for
probably
for stuff. But I was ranting it to you in the car on the way to camping about the fact that they took this storyline about somebody who has been disfigured in an acid attack, and they've turned it into a story they could have done with anybody. Ryan didn't need to have had this issue with his face to do this Ovid storyline that they're trying to do. I wish that they had focused on the issue that they started with, because there's loads of stuff to do with what Ryan is going through, and they haven't talked about that at all. I mean, we got a brief mention of the Scar Clinic today, on Friday, I mean, but we never, we don't really get to hear much about it. Does it hurt? I bet it does. Is it kind of, because you have to stretch things like that, otherwise you can end up, the scars get too tight and then you lose mobility, and you're like, none of this has come up.
No, it seems to be they're just jumping from
really
one point
jumped
to the next very, very quickly. First it's stalking, then it's acid, then it's Ryan and Daisy fancying or the whole crystal thing.
Yeah.
Then it's about him
now it's
getting his photos online.
Yeah.
Now it's turned into Ovids. And also there's a bit of steroid abuse going on in there as well. It's a bit much maybe to throw at one person.
It's all
so close together.
It's all working, but I'm just frustrated with how quickly things are jumping about, because I feel like there's so much more to say about the issues that we've dumped. And I understand that there's a clear link between them all. They all logically follow on from one another. There's no criticism there. But why couldn't we have had a bit more about this acid attack story? And you know that haven't charities worked with Corrie on this? Sorry, we're not doing that anymore. But he's still got scars. Yeah, but we're not focusing on that aspect anymore.
It gets enough mention though. I mean, the whole thing of I don't want to show my face and
it's part
here's
of
my
it.
arm. I didn't understand why he put that picture of him with his arm.
I think he was thinking, maybe I'll be brave and maybe I'll be accepted, and then he got rejected. You know, it was very sad for him to see how careless and cruel people are, especially on the internet, you know, ironically, when they're also anonymous.
Because was that picture with the bottle on the same account as his abs pictures?
Yeah, I think he's got his fitness influencer in inverted commas account, and that must have been his original social media account, because people know who he is and they follow him already. Yeah. And they were talking about, oh, look at Ryan's posted this picture. So he's obviously using that account, which is not anonymous, and he's getting sponsorship on that from all the pictures that he's posting. And then he's got this secret Ovid's account that nobody knows who he is on there for now.
What do you think is going to happen first? The finding out about the pictures or the steroids?
I wonder whether that's why Simon's involved. Maybe Simon might start hassling him for a hookup. And, if you don't give me some, I'm going to tell everybody. Can you imagine
I'd like to think that Simon isn't just been putting in these scenes to get his episode count up, and maybe he will be the one that discovers them. I mean, he's been involved in drugs in the past, hasn't he, with the whole Harvey story a few years ago.
Yeah.
But I don't think the story necessarily needs Simon. I think Simon probably needs the story. I don't know. And this roid rage stuff, is that going to lead to something more serious?
But he's going to whack Carla.
Yeah, or do you think? Because so far he's punched his wardrobe, which Carla and Peter haven't put two and two together with. He's intimidated Carla.
Smashed a cup.
Maybe he's just going to punch Simon in the face.
I mean, how terrible.
He's not the only one that's wanted to do that over the years.
But you know how Simon is a very angry little man. I can imagine if he gets on steroids, he's going to be even worse. Imagine him.
No, he's not going to be on steroids.
But what you said to me, why is Simon involved? That's one example of what could happen if he blackmails him.
Yeah.
Why not chuck that in as well?
Speaking of Simon, did you see that? The chips scene on Friday when he says, "Who's Paul?"
How dare you? He's been in it more than you have.
That just goes to show how little he's been involved with anybody on the street, that he doesn't even know who Paul is at the moment.
I don't know why they put that line in. It feels like a dig.
It does, doesn't it?
Because
Paul is the person that Carla hit with her van earlier this year as well. So, I mean, in some ways, you might think it's more realistic, because in a normal street,
that is
not
realistic.
Everybody does know everybody else. But in the world of Coronation Street, everyone's got each other's phone numbers in their mobile. Apart from Simon.
With headshots.
Do you think everybody on Coronation Street's in a WhatsApp group apart from Simon?
Poor Simon!
Don't tell him. Anyway, so I enjoyed this. It was pretty fun. The other thing that I noticed, which I thought was a bit weird, was when you get a still of Ryan's Ovid account, we find out that on Friday, I think he had 38 followers, but he's following 126 people.
That's how you get it. That's how you boost your numbers.
Is it by follow it?
Well, on Twitter it is. If you look, sometimes some accounts that you go on there and they've got thousands of followers, and you're like, I don't understand why this account has got so many followers. And then you look at how many people they're following, and it's the same number.
So we don't think that Ryan's out there ogling some ladies of his own.
No, I think he's following people to get attention. That's how you do it. I wouldn't know though. I'm not on OnlyFans.
Interesting stuff. So the Paul storyline, Gemma.
Yes.
Sad times.
Well, there was a bit of happiness
week.
and a bit of sadness, as we always get with Paul. Like I said, good balance they're doing with this storyline.
Yeah.
There's things to really enjoy, and also things that make you very sad. Honestly, this is one of the best stories Corey's done in years, and I hate the theme of it. I hate medical things. The thought of what Paul's going through is heartbreaking, and it's even worse because it's happening to real people all around us all the time. But the story, the way they're handling it, I think is fantastic.
They are mostly for me. I think some of the
I don't
engineered,
like the relationship drama.
Yeah, exactly. Paul's just overheard Billy talking to Todd about how he'd have dumped him if he wasn't sick, and I don't think it needs that at all.
It doesn't need it. It's okay, we'll get to it. So on Monday, Billy's drafting a letter to the bishop trying to beg for him to change the entire Church of England.
Sorry, that scene was utterly ridiculous, and it's making me wonder, is this actually going to be accepted?
No, hang on.
Why does Billy think that he can get a church wedding?
I know,
it's
but
out of the question. The Church of England will not do this.
Yeah, I know. This is the upsetting thing. Is like Billy's been okay with the homophobia of the fact that the church won't recognise or allow gay weddings until it affected him personally, and then he's kind of expecting them to see the human in the issue here. But for the church, it's not about individual people at all. That you could come with any story that you like. That is the policy, and there's no way that a bishop could change that. And
no, just by Billy
wedding.
Phoning up, going, "Oh, go on."
But he's really ill, and he's
really
going to die.
Poorly. It's only going to count for a little bit.
He doesn't even go to church. I want to marry this guy who doesn't even go to church. Please feel sorry for me. That's not what I understand what I don't understand what Billy thinks he's doing. He must understand. I've had a problem with Billy being a Church of England I don't know, clergyman, because the problem I have is that he's never really fully addressed the contradiction that he lives every day of being taught or teaching with the church that there's something inherently wrong. I think
over the years the Church of England has been more accepting.
I know,
but there is still the thing that they won't conduct gay marriage ceremonies. They'll do a blessing.
It is a criticism. I'm trying to be really nice about people's beliefs, because I've said before, religious beliefs are sincerely held, and everybody has some kind of belief that is offensive to somebody else. That's just the way humans are. But I can't see how Billy can stand knowing that.
I'm wondering whether, I can't remember whether the Unitarian church that Roy and Hayley got married in, whether they...
Well, there are different... This is what my point is. There are different...
But would that be enough for Billy?
Branches.
Is it better than nothing?
He could be a religious clergyman in a different branch of Christianity. I'm sure there are Christians that would accept. I just like, why has Corrie made him a Church of England? What is he again?
Archdeacon.
Semi-bishop. Archdeacon. Why have they done that? Is it because it's the only religion, the only branch of Christianity they know? Or is it because it's the main one? Is it the only one that really sustains, paying somebody to do this?
I think
as a
it's for the
full-time
drama,
job?
because it did cause some upset with, can Todd move into the bishopry? Not the vicar's house. I just hope that Coronation Street don't go down the route of, the bishop has decided to make an exception for you. I really think that would be a bad move if they did that. Also, if they go down that route, then I assume that the wedding would be filmed at St Mary's Church, and I don't think that St Mary's Church would allow that, although they did allow the drugs in the aisles. I think I'm very intrigued about how it goes, but I don't want Corrie to just rewrite the Church of England into saying, "I'll go on then for a one-off."
No, that would be just silly. I understand why Billy. I guess Billy thinks that he can convince, but it's not about that, is it?
No.
And Billy must understand that, because he's part of the system that's basically oppressing.
It seems like the wedding is almost certainly going to go ahead at this point. I think people have been asking for a gay wedding on Coronation Street for so long, and to have this dangling in front of us, plus the combination of, isn't it bittersweet because Paul's on his last legs. I think that this is going to be the time when we actually see a wedding. I don't know how it's going to work and how it's going to end up with something that Billy is completely happy with.
It's really sad, and it's another element of this that adds something to it.
And it's a shame that if this is, which I'm pretty certain it will be Coronation Street's first gay wedding, that it will still be tinged with sadness and
kill the gay.
He's gonna. He has not got long left to live. The other one is doing it when he's not completely happy with the type of ceremony that they're going to get, and we'll say, we did it, we did a gay wedding.
I am wondering whether this is going to lead to Billy quitting the church.
I don't know.
He doesn't have to give up his religion or beliefs, because from my understanding, you can be a Christian and be gay and follow the Bible completely. There's nothing in the Bible there's like one line that people argue about whether that means one thing or another thing. But there's no contradiction in his, in his faith. It's the way that Christianity has been interpreted by the Church of England.
I don't know. I think it's going into places we don't know enough about. But it just feels like I still say it's going to be wrong if the Church of England in Weatherfield turn a blind eye.
Well, I think it would be nice. I just want Billy to explain why he's okay with it, because I don't want it to come across like I'm saying he's wrong to think this, because I know that there are people who are in high positions, who are Christian, who are gay and have the same beliefs as Billy. are in the same kind of situation.
Yeah.
So it's not like it's an impossible thing to explain, but we haven't really had Billy's perspective, have we?
No.
That's all I want.
They're skirting around the issue, but
They're too scared to look it in the eye, but they've created the situation themselves. Corey have.
Anyway, sorry, that's that bit of it. What else happened?
As this is happening, Paul is struggling in the kitchen, and Billy says, we need to make some things easier for you. So Summer and Paul are having a laugh later about who's going to get up and get some popcorn. He finds it very difficult when he does get up, and Billy comes in and he's got a crutch for him, and Paul doesn't want it, he doesn't need help, and Summer says, you need to stop wallowing, get the stick, go for a walk. And he wishes things could go back to the way they were. They go walking down the street, and most of the right side of Paul's body is just really limp, and he's hating.
The story's come on again, hasn't it? Like, every time that it comes back from having a bit of a break, Paul is noticeably worse, and at this stage it is pretty much his right side of his body is just gone.
It's really difficult to talk about this without using negative language. That feels very upsetting and confronting. But I also don't want to minimise I don't want to pretty up the language that we use to try to diminish his what he's going through, because I don't think that's fair. I am struggling with the way to word these things. Like you say, he's worse. Like that's got such a negative sound to it.
Well,
but
is there a positive spin?
No, but that's what I'm trying to say. This is literally my point, Michael. That is the right word, but I know that there's a lot of discussion about the language that you use to talk about. Even the word disability is got, a loaded term. So I'm just saying this as a disclaimer that I don't want to minimise his suffering by pretending and using words like phrases like he's just differently abled. His things are being stolen from him by this condition day by day.
I thought that this was a really good scene. I think that having Summer give him a bit of tough love and taking him out was good for her. But also
Summer's becoming more interesting in this story.
Now she's not the one that's falling around all over the place, and it's somebody else that's taking up that role. Maybe she's like his mentor, and this is how you fall over without hurting yourself too badly.
This is how you look dramatic.
No, it's the other bit that I liked on this is Debbie at the end of the street. She's just kind of there giving him a bit of a side eye, isn't she? And she's looking, but without meaning to look like she's looking.
I thought the point of this scene was that Debbie wasn't giving him two thoughts, and he was
I think
focused.
that she was looking and she was having a bit of a stare. And at the moment, we're not supposed to be thinking that Debbie's that nice a person, is she? Because she's doing all this underhand stuff with Ronnie, and I think that she was saying to herself, "Oh, look, hasn't he got worse?" And then when she walks past them later, she doesn't say anything because I think she's too embarrassed and wouldn't know what to say.
My interpretation was totally different. The interpretation I got was that this was all in Paul's head, that everyone's staring at him and he's the focus of attention and people are having negative thoughts about him, because Debbie was in her own world and she's chatting away, and then she's kind of like just marches past and she
I didn't get that at all.
What does everyone else think? Tell us what you thought about that scene. Interesting. I want to rewatch it now. So they go back home, and Summer and Billy are whispering about this birthday surprise they've got for Paul, and Paul sits down and he's like saying, this crutch is much harder than it looks, but I'm going to get used to it, and he doesn't want anybody to be involved, like a medical team or anything like that. I remember I had to use crutches once. They're horrible. They're really hard.
What was that for? I don't remember that.
Oh, when I hurt my toe.
Oh, yeah.
And my mum and dad took me to this food festival, and I was just miserable and being a right bitch the whole time because I couldn't use my.
Well, he's just got one, hasn't he? He's got one of these quad feety ones that help.
But you can see how much strength it's using to transfer his weight onto his hand.
Yeah.
So on Wednesday, ultimate cop out. If Billy's done one bad thing this week, it was this. I was furious. He gives Paul an engagement ring for his birthday.
Yeah, I know. It's like, well, what else? Yes, we're engaged.
Yeah, this isn't a present. This is...
You owe me this.
You owe me this, yeah. Get me something else. Paul meets Gemma and Chesney in the cafe, and they say that they're going to have a party in the bistro. Obviously, it's Gemma's birthday as well. And this makes me so sad to think that Gemma, we're going to surely have a scene after Paul has died where it's Gemma's birthday again, but she's celebrating by herself.
I mean, I'm not expecting at this stage Paul to still be with us by this time next year.
No, me either.
So, set the date for this episode in a year's time. Gemma
Dolly Rose Campbell doing some excellent acting about the fact that she's a twin, who's lost her other half, and every birthday she's going to be reminded of her loss. It's just absolutely heartbreaking. So, he doesn't want to go to this party, but he's going to go to make her happy. So when they arrive at the party, it looks like there's a few more people invited than Paul had anticipated.
Yeah, he just wanted it to be family only if he had to have it at all. And Daniel turns up, doesn't he? And I can't remember
great,
who
Daniel
else.
says it's going to be a great party now.
Oh, Dee Dee's there.
Yeah, Dee Dee's there. These are all people that he likes. I don't know what he's moaning about. Bryn's hyper. He's had 2 shepherd tips.
Do you think Simon was invited? And he's like, who's Paul?
Yeah, probably. Leanne was trying to be nice, but as usual comes off as a bitch. She gives them extra sandwiches and then gets mardy when they won't order alcohol. But Gemma brings her own bottle of vodka, doesn't she?
Yes,
nothing happens with that, I don't think. Bryn is, like we said, hyper. So Paul says, I'll take him to the precinct to burn off some steam. Why did they let him do this?
That was a bit of a risk,
really,
considering how he'd been the previous day.
This is so cruel to Paul. And it's cruel. The whole thing is cruel for Paul. I understand that, but anyway, they're like, where's Paul? It's been a while, and he and Bryn are still on the park. Then Bryn decides to be a little git, and you've written little pickle. That's nicer, isn't it? He runs off, and Paul tries to chase him, falls over, and Peter just so happens to be at the precinct.
That's a nice coincidence, isn't it?
He did explain why he was there. He was having a walk because he was stuck in a cab all day and he decided to go for a walk. If I was a portable person in a cab, I would drive to a park and have a walk. But Peter likes to look around playgrounds. I'm not going to ask questions.
I was expecting this scene when I saw that Paul and Bryn were going to be off in the precinct together. I thought there'd be like some kind of scene where Bryn falls over and gets himself back up again, and Paul would make something of that and like, I need to get myself back up again, or I can't get myself back up again. I thought that Bryn might have a bit of a tumble, but no,
just ran off like a little git. So Peter
runs around the corner into the Coronation Street car park. That's dangerous.
Gets run over by a car.
Yeah.
Paul bundles them up, helps
Ian McLeod coming into work.
Sorry,
Bryn.
Oh no. Oh well, there are 8 of you. Peter bundles him up and helps Paul to stand back up again. All go back to the bistro. Paul just feeling really guilty, and he says, I can't do stuff on my own with the kids anymore. When have we ever seen Paul do anything on his own with the kids? Apparently now it's his greatest ambition in life. Billy helps Paul home, and he is very miserable, and he also doesn't think he can manage to go up the stairs. And Todd comes over, and Billy tells him that Paul needs carrying. Paul's so embarrassed. He doesn't want them to help him. He just feels terrible. But Todd kind of gives him a sort of no nonsense kind of, right, come on then, this is what we've got to do.
Yeah, I thought that was a great scene, and it's definitely within Paul's character to not want the help. And I think that Todd, as devious as he's also being in the Rest Easy story, was a good guy for helping him up, and like Summer giving Paul a bit of tough love.
We've criticised the gay dad story before as being a bit like not fun. But the dynamic between these 3 men is actually really interesting, and the way that it's developing here between these 3 is I love this. I love the camaraderie, and I love the way that they all care for each other, even though so many terrible things have happened because of each of them in this story. But yeah, Todd helps him up the stairs, and they're in the flat, and then they're like, we need to get you sorted with something. We can't do this all the time. We've got to get grants and get the stair lift. And then Todd's like, do you know what? I'm doing a funeral for a lady that's got a stair lift. They're not going to need it anymore. And he's so cutthroat. I think it's great. I think I see. Todd's one of those people that I feel more kinship to.
You'd be moving over to Rest Easy, wouldn't you?
Yeah, if somebody's going to give me more money to do the same thing I'm doing now, then I would always go for that. So Billy says, we can't just take things off a grieving widow. And Todd's like, look, Paul needs this. So
I really, really, really wish they would just address the fact that there used to be a stair lift going up to that flat. And I know I've said it before, but it was less than 10 years ago there was a stair lift going up to that very flat when Izzy lived there.
I know, if only
There's
a line
probably the
to
rails
say,
still there.
why did we have this taken out when we moved in?
Nobody else was going to remember.
No.
But
Billy and Paul are on the sofa later, and Paul's like, this has just made me realise that I want to do things before I get robbed of the chance of doing them. And the first thing on my list is to walk down the aisle on my wedding day. So there's going to be a tragic question about whether he's going to be able to or not. And at the last minute, he probably will be.
Oh, he'll do
Bernie,
it.
I'm sure Bernie will help him. Maybe Bernie and Gemma.
Bernie and Gemma are either side of him, walking him down the aisle.
I'm crying already.
Is that an aisle in a church, or is it in the register office, or what? I don't know. But yeah, there's going to be some very tragic wedding scenes. Yeah. On
Friday, it's Pride, and Summer, as a straight girl, is trying to tell Billy that he needs to get glittered up, which is always, I'm sure, always people love to hear that from straight people.
Billy's
about
even
Pride.
a killjoy on Pride. He's like, no, I'm not putting glitter in my beard.
He's not into it, but Paul's like, yeah, I'm gonna have some, but I don't know if I want to go out for it. And
yeah, they kind of agree that they're just going to go and sit on the side and watch in the end, aren't they? Rather than
that's not what happens. Billy and Paul get dressed up as the guys from ABBA, and they're all ready to go out with Bernie and Summer and Gemma, I think.
But Bernie now recovered from her hospital trip on Wednesday.
That's what I was going to say. There was this really... You know what you were saying about, I wish they'd mentioned the stair lift? And we also complain about, why isn't so-and-so character here when they really should be? Well, they addressed it, didn't they? On Wednesday, it was Paul and Gemma's birthday. It's probably the last birthday Paul is ever going to see. Where was his mum? Obviously,
Jane
Hazelgrove was not available for whatever reason to film this scene. So we had to have a very protracted explanation of why Bernie wasn't there, which involved being poked in the eye with a pencil and going to A&E.
I don't know what the solution is. Is it don't mention it? Is it just somebody say, oh yeah, she's just in the toilet, of course she's here, or do they just wait until she's there?
Or do they go, Bernie, bring over the drinks, but you never see her on screen?
Yeah, they could have that, couldn't they?
I feel really sorry for Corey because they're damned if they do, damned if they don't here. We moan when they're not in it. We moan when there's an explanation as to why they're not in it. They cannot win. I'm really sorry, Corey. I wish I knew the answer.
It's just like waving a big flag, really, isn't it?
It is like going...
Production issues.
Yeah, anyway, so...
But she makes up for it on Friday, doesn't she? Because she's got rainbow in her hair. I liked, you pointed this out, Gemma's pride written back to front on her forehead.
Yeah, because she obviously drew it in the mirror. That was a really funny touch. So they're all ready to go, but guess what?
What?
There's a blimmin' occupational... it can't be occupational.
That's what it is. That's what it's called.
Is it?
Yeah.
But he's not got an occupation.
That's what it is called, I promise you.
Okay, so she's a party pooper, isn't she?
Melody.
She's obviously homophobic.
Oh, is she working on a Saturday or is this a Friday?
Going around ruining everyone's Pride Day. How dare she? So Melody comes round and she's obviously very lovely. I'm only joking. Don't think anyone takes me seriously anymore, which is the sensible way to approach this. She comes round and Paul's like, oh, I wish you weren't here. Today of all days, the holy day.
Can't you tell I'm gay?
Yes. Billy's like, no, it's fine. He's more gay than I am. I've got glitter on my face. So Melody says, well, I can go if you want me to. And Billy's like, no, you got to stay. So she sits next to Paul to try to talk to him about what his needs are.
Billy's just trying to stick his neb in, isn't he? This is what is getting underneath Paul's skin, that Billy's being a bit too micromanagey with everything related to Paul's care, and he wants to be able to take control of it himself.
I see both sides of this because Paul is not what's the word? Doesn't have a realistic perspective. It feels like he's living in hope. That he's not going to progress, and
do you think?
No, I'm just trying to explain to you. I'm trying to think of the right words to say, and it's always difficult for me to try to phrase things correctly. But I think Billy's got a better perspective because he's not living in Paul's head. He can see that Paul needs a stair lift and a wheelchair. He's the one that has to carry Paul up the stairs when he can't make it. And Paul keeps insisting, I don't need this and I don't need that. And I can't remember who it was said to, but the lady that we met previously who has MND, she said, don't wait till you need it, get it first.
Yeah.
I think it was just Paul she said this to. He's ignoring that piece of advice, but Billy's being realistic and he's like, no, we need this now. We need this before you can't walk anymore. So you think he's interfering?
He is, but I do feel sympathy with
Paul.
him. Paul says he's interfering.
But Billy's the one that's going to be caring for Paul when he can't do anything for himself. He's got just as much of a say in this.
Yeah.
And I understand Paul's perspective. I would hate to be in this situation. This is a nightmare, having to rely on other people, but sort of just, insisting that you're independent and you don't need X, Y, or Z. It's not helpful, is it?
I don't think it's like that. It's more just a case of today of all days. Can any day
No,
just
I know.
be me being me?
That's part of the drama, though, isn't it?
Yeah.
But Melody's pointing out, and this is a way to reframe your thoughts on it. If you're in Paul's position, is that these aren't things that are confining you. These are giving you independence. You're not confined to a wheelchair. The wheelchair is allowing you to move around the world as you used to be able to. Gives you more freedom.
Yeah.
That's how you have to train your mind.
Yeah. When she says to him, look, you are going to need a wheelchair. Billy's right.
You need to come to terms with the fact that the next stage will be you in a wheelchair.
Yeah.
And just the thought of never being able to leave that and that's where you're going to die is just horrific.
I know.
So Billy goes later and Paul's just really frustrated. And yeah, like I said, I understand him too. Because he's undermining Paul. Paul at the moment has a certain amount of independence and he's defending it, isn't he? He's defending this from what he thinks is Billy kind of undermining him. And he's like, I'm in control. This is going too fast and I feel like I'm losing myself. And Billy's like, well, it affects me too. You're not the only person. I'm trying to help you and I'm there to catch you literally when you fall, but one day I won't be there to do it. I need you to be able to take, to use things to help you for that. And he's like, oh well, but Paul says, well, you're
so
going
obsessed with how how I'm
physical.
declining physically. You're not thinking about my mental decline as well.
Yeah, they need therapy. They need somebody there must be somebody who can help them. With all that money that I'm just confused as to what Billy's spending all his money on because he must be getting all this money. They don't live in a massive flat.
No.
Where's all these savings going?
Giving them to the homeless, probably. Bloody do-gooder.
Oh, no, yeah. Anyway, so yeah, that money would be quite helpful for wheelchairs and stair lifts and therapy and stuff. But anyway, all counselling. So Paul gets himself out the flat somehow. And he's in Seb's garden and he's having a booze up and crying and David finds him. Now, I'm glad that they reminded me of this because David and Paul shared a cell.
This is how Paul first came into the programme, yeah, when David was in prison that time and Paul was there too. But half me is glad that they reminded us of that. The other half of me is saying, well, you kind of highlighted the fact that David's had nothing to do with this story so far, and he probably should have done. Because when Paul came back onto the show, didn't he come to... I can't remember whether he came to find David or whether he came to find Gemma, but... I mean, I suppose the two don't have to be best mates just because they shared a cell together. But it has made me wonder, so is David going to be a part of this now? Or was it literally just a case for today's episode? Because David, I feel, I've been crying out for them to use David properly this year. Yeah, he's been kind of tangentially involved in the Max story, but it feels like, compared to the days 4 or 5 years ago where David was the main character on Coronation Street for years at a time, they've really given him not much to do at the moment, and I think he would be a natural fit as part of this story, maybe as a bit of an outsider to the whole love triangle of Paul, Todd and Billy. Maybe David would be a bit of an escape for that. So, I don't know. I think maybe it feels like it's going to be a bit like Izzy when she showed up a few months ago and said, oh, being in a wheelchair is not so bad, or whatever it was she said. Maybe this is all we're going to get from David. Which would be a shame.
It's also could be one of those things where it was supposed to be somebody else and they didn't turn up. But that's not what I mean. They didn't turn up. They just couldn't make it. I don't think that's what happens. Yeah, I really liked it. I really liked David's inclusion in this. David goes around to number 5 and tells Gemma where Paul is, and Gemma's worried about this, and because he disappeared after that, doesn't he? And then she and Billy go out looking for him, and then she finds out he's gotten over the count and he's posted pictures of himself at Pride. Not really. He's just posting on social media. They look out the window and then they see him going into the Rovers with 3 drag queens. I can't believe. Oh, Paul's having a great time. What? He's being a right dick, isn't he? Really, he's been a bit of a dick here. Everybody was excited to go to Pride, and then he ditches them. I guess this is a way of asserting his independence, isn't it? Yeah. I don't need to spend the day with you. I can go and do what I want. I want to go to Pride.
Everyone who wanted to go out has just spent the day missing Pride, looking for him.
Yeah.
I'm surprised that, by this stage, especially considering his physical state, Billy should really have some kind of location tracker on Paul at the moment.
I don't think that would go down very
just,
well.
Just what goes on your phone.
Yeah,
Find my family.
Yeah, I know, but I don't think Paul would go for that. And also, he's not often out and about by himself. This is the first time they've lost him. Yeah,
but he went out about by himself on Wednesday as well when he went to the precinct.
Well, he also went off and snogged that guy, didn't he?
Yeah, exactly. I think if
He's up to all sorts.
It's definitely not the sort of thing that Paul would want.
No.
But
well, I don't think
he should be getting that at this stage.
I don't think that would be a productive conversation. Right, Paul and the Queens are having a great time with Glenda at the bar. You've written the bra, but I think that would have.
It's auto-correcting, just the same as earlier on. It's auto-correcting Bryn as Brian. Paul goes to the park with Brian, and he's such a little pickle.
Brian's such a pickle. Billy comes in with a face like thunder. Where have you been? And Paul says, I wanted to have a good time by myself with these 3.
I like Glenda in this scene as well. And these drag queens like, oh, you're welcome, aren't you? Like,
that's right.
I'm back for the rainbows, me. Was it Glenda that said that?
Yeah, it was, yeah. I'm so camp, I've got my own camping kitchen. Summer, Asha and Nina come in dressed as the Golden Girls, which is fantastic.
I thought that Summer, and I've seen other people thinking that, when we first saw Summer, it did look like she was dressed as Cilla Black.
Oh, okay. Well, I saw
another gay icon.
Yeah. I think any time you wear a wig. I saw a funny... Where did it go? Somebody put on Twitter that they looked like... where did it go? Hang on. They looked like Bette Lynch, Phyllis Pearce and Rita.
Oh, yeah. It's been a bit of a while since Corrie's had a good... fancy dress excuse. I used to complain that they had it too often.
And now we're complaining that they don't have it enough. Billy starts getting at Paul again because he doesn't like there to not be arguments and tension involved in any storyline that he's in. And the party is he doesn't get anywhere, so he goes back to the flat. And everyone in the Rovers is having a brilliant time except Paul. He's miserable. And so Gemma takes him back to the flat.
Because Billy just came in and poured cold water over the whole thing. He was having a great time before his boyfriend turned up.
It's difficult because Billy's got just as much a right to protect his feelings and stuff, but he picks really bad times.
Yeah.
I wouldn't like it's not fair to say that Billy has to be on automaton and only react in a positive way to everything that Paul does forever. Well, until Paul dies. He's got feelings too, but yeah, like I said, he's not great at expressing them.
Choose your moments,
sort of
Billy.
Appropriate times. So Gemma takes Paul back to the flat, and he opens up to her about his time is running out. The only reason I'm hanging out with the drag queens was because they fell over again and they helped me, and they were the heroes of this, the heroines of this story, because they rescued him and brought him to the Rovers, and they were great. I forgot, have you written down who? One of them, the one in black and white is Licorice Black.
Yeah, the one that didn't say anything, that wasn't credited in the episode.
No, it wasn't credited, but that was the person who designed Gemma's wedding dress, the beautiful orange one.
Yeah,
so.
It makes me wonder whether they agreed to do that and then said, do I get to be on choreo?
Yeah.
Or was there some kind of agreement.
Yeah.
Also, thank you for doing Gemma's wedding dress. Would you like to appear on this? It feels like it must have been something like that.
I'm really glad that they were in the episode. And then we also had Kai Kelly and Bobby Twaddle, who were the other two drag queens that didn't have names. They were Drag Queen 1 and Drag Queen 2.
Yeah.
Which I thought was a missed opportunity because I would have liked to have known what their names were.
Well.
Yeah. So he starts crying because, you know, although he was putting on a front, he's just had another terrible experience, and it's his birthday. Well, it was his birthday month, and everything's just going wrong in a irretrievably horrific way. And Gemma tells him, "You cannot push Billy away. I know you're sad, but he's helping you. You need to let him." And he has another little cry after Gemma leaves. So Todd sees Billy in the street and says, "Do you still want that stairlift? Because that lady's still dead." And Billy says, I'm not in Paul's good books at the moment. You've got to talk to him about it, not me." So Todd's like, "Oh, mate, do you want to have a drink?" So they go upstairs with a bottle of wine together, don't they? And Billy's opening up to Todd. I completely think that Billy has got the right to vent about his situation, and it probably is very healthy and positive because it helps him to work through his feelings, and maybe once he gets it off his chest he'll feel better, but not in earshot of your... But I don't know if he knew that Paul...
He must have known that Paul was there. Would Paul be? Where else would Paul be? And it was one of the yet another case of a coincidental overhearing, but they don't have a small flat. That's totally on Billy. What an idiot.
I know, I mean, but what can you say?
I couldn't figure out from watching the scene whether what it was that Paul heard, or whether he heard differently than he thought he heard, because
he definitely heard
Billy said
the truth.
It was the other... remember the time that he went and snogged that person in the hotel? If Paul wasn't sick, I would have dumped him there. And I'm wondering whether Paul didn't hear the bit about the hotel, but was just thinking about, you know, him going off today. So he's thinking that Billy's most angry about going off, and today would have been the last straw otherwise. It doesn't particularly matter at the end of the day.
It's not a nice thing to hear.
No.
And I think the point that both of them probably understand but are not thinking hard enough about is that it wouldn't have happened if he wasn't sick.
Yeah.
So he overhears Billy saying this, and then he comes in and says, "Don't hang around for my sake," and goes off to bed.
And Billy's like, oh dear. Whoops.
Whoopsie doodles. Bugged it up again.
Yeah, that was the only bit that I don't necessarily need as part of the story.
I agree with you there, but I also think it's really realistic that there's a lot of tension within the relationship about what is happening here, and I'm sure that happens in lots of couples.
Oh yeah, I'm sure that there's definitely not everybody is lovely and supportive 100% of the time and always says the right thing.
Well, even if they are lovely and supportive, you still can put your foot in it.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
Or you can still feel stressed out and fed up with being a carer because you don't think of that happening in a relationship. That everyone has a very rosy view of what it's like, but when somebody gets sick, then it does turn into you being a carer.
Yeah. I, as a viewer, though, I suppose the thing that's annoying me the most about this is I'm thinking, well, they're not going to split up over this. There is no way that with the promise of a wedding on the horizon, with the tragedy of everything else, they're not gonna, I can see Billy being there on Paul's bedside as he dies, unless they go down the assisted suicide route and it's somebody else other than Billy, which is definitely possible with Todd on the scene. I don't know, but they're not splitting up, are they? So the final cliffhanger of Friday's episode was just a bit unsatisfying for me, because it means there's going to be arguments next week, and probably by this time next week they'll have kissed and made up. And Paul will be like, yeah, you're right, maybe I do need to take it easy or listen to what you say. What did you think of the whole getting the pride into Friday's episode? It was a bit of a surprise to me, because I don't think it's anything that Corrie's particularly lent that much into before. I think they've maybe mentioned it, but I think this is the proudest, if you like, Corrie has ever been on screen.
I mean, I thought it was great. I think that I was upset how many people obviously got triggered by this. Because the show was created by a gay man, I think it's totally appropriate that they celebrate Pride. And
I was left thinking, it did confuse me a bit about the day of the week. And I know that's a silly thing to think about. Like, why was Gemma allowed to be at Pride? Is Henry letting her have the day off? Why wasn't Henry I'm just bitter that Henry wasn't in Coronation Street at all this week.
He could be very camp in Pride.
I know, he'd be brilliant. No, I was just thinking, like, now Corrie has set a precedent, do they feel that they have to mark Pride every year now? Because although
if they
don't
do it next year, it's going to be like, ooh, what's wrong with
Yeah,
Corrie?
exactly. And it wasn't like there were flags flying down the street or anything, but they did have they did have the rainbow flags up in the Rovers, and you know, if they do have it every year, will it become one of these things like, oh no, not again? But then, but for the community, it is an annual thing, and it wouldn't feel weird to have it every year.
I don't know.
It's like, is it like Christmas? Like, do people say, "Oh no, not Christmas again"? I can't believe they've mentioned that on Corrie again for December.
Well, there are some big, you know, there are some things that arguably are bigger that they don't talk about at all. But I think Pride, I think it felt totally normal. It didn't feel like I was going, why is Corrie doing all this Pride stuff? It was like, oh yeah, okay, this makes sense. It
is big in Manchester at this time, isn't it? I mean, Pride is going on right now. We've never been to the Manchester one, but we've been there in the days running up to it, and it definitely always feels like there's a big, you know, it's a big affair that gets everybody talking. So it didn't feel out of place. I'm just again thinking of next year. If Paul is not still with us, then the double whammy of his birthday followed by Pride, that's going to be a mega Paul memorial, isn't it?
Maybe, yeah.
They'll probably make like a Paul float or something.
Yeah, I think it was great. The drag queens were funny. I thought. Yeah. I like I said, it felt totally normal. It didn't feel like the sort of thing where I was thinking this feels a bit shoehorned in here. It feels like.
It was fun, and having Glenda being there front and centre was the best.
But I think
was Sean there on Friday's episode?
I don't know. Maybe he got the day off because it's Pride. But obviously on Twitter you get the usual idiots moaning on about it. But we only saw one or two. Yeah. Really have a. I just think. Well, you think it's obvious what I think.
So we've now got the possibility of Todd and David being involved in the story. I think David less likely to be a big part in it. Todd's been on the fringes, but I hope they don't go too quickly. I hope they don't go down the route of Paul suspecting that Todd and Billy are having a secret affair or anything like that. I think that's very unnecessary. But I'd like to see the more serious side of Todd being there to help him out more. So yeah, very, very well told story. I think both this one and the Ryan one, to me, I was watching it going, yeah, this is on the whole. Yeah. They're doing a good job with this.
Well, I think, I've seen lots of people, any story you see people complaining about it, and one of the complaints I saw was that they thought Billy was being stupid or overreacting or something. But I just think everybody is acting in a realistic way. And it's all understandable, and it's one of those tragedies where people come at things from a different perspective, and then you're not necessarily wrong for how you think, but how you think is in conflict with how somebody else thinks.
Yeah.
So Billy wanting to make sure that Paul's got all the help he needs versus Paul thinking that Billy's sticking his nose in. I can see why they both feel upset about it. But what's the solution? I don't know.
Yeah. And big shout out again to Peter Ash, who is still doing an absolutely brilliant job at showing what this condition might be like.
I don't know where the story is going. My theory is that he's going to save somebody and die that way, because I don't really want Corrie to do another assisted dying thing.
I really, really don't want that. But it feels like to me that's the more likely one.
The way
as
how
it's
much
been
he's
suggested.
Struggling physically, I don't see there's not many athletic things he could do to stop somebody from being run over by a car, for example.
No.
Or jump in front of a bullet. So I can see it. I don't know where I started with this.
Just wondering where it's going to end up.
But yeah,
And not
I
wanting
know
an
what my
assisted
point
dying
was.
story.
My point was, I don't know where this is going, but I'm sure the ending is going to be something amazing. Sad, tragic.
I think whatever it is, they'll do a good job, even if it's not necessarily the way.
If he dies saving somebody, I think that's going to be almost triumphant and kind of stealing your power back from this illness in a way that's not. Because I think the thing also is that people with MND, I don't really want them to watch this and think, oh, maybe I should do the same thing as Paul because I'm a burden. You know, that's not what you want anyone to think about this.
Mm.
Anyway, my point was, you said Peter Ash is doing a brilliant job. I really hope that he gets nominated for some big awards and wins.
Oh, I think
I don't know how much chance he's got of winning the awards because of, I don't know what other soaps are doing, and also I don't think Paul's a massively popular character, definitely not before this storyline, so that might count against him. But for as far as acting and performance goes, he's just being spectacular. He's doing such a brilliant job, and I think that he definitely deserves some recognition.
Yeah,
for
I really think that when they give her some good stuff, that Dolly Rose Campbell is also being brilliant opposite him as well.
There's almost nobody on Coronation Street that cannot rise to the occasion of what they're given.
Yeah,
and I think it's really good for Gemma's character too. This storyline, because it's reminding everybody, because what she was loved for originally was comedy and her vulnerability. And she just turned into a bit of a parody of herself in recent years. But this is bringing back her, Dolly Rose's ability to perform lots of nuanced and emotional scenes.
Yeah. Right, let's move on to the stiff competition. Talking about people dying, let's move on to lovely segue into what's been going on with George and Todd this week.
You know, can I just say, I know that Todd is not going to spend the rest of his time at Rest Easy, because I know that when Paul dies, Todd and George will be doing his funeral.
That this is like I was saying
together.
With the falling out with Paul and Billy at the end of Friday's episode. I'm thinking, well, it's not gonna last, is it? And this is another thing that's like, I don't expect in the slightest for Todd to be staying at this other place. It's just a bit of a falling out, which means I wasn't super invested in it. And there were bits of this story I enjoyed this week, but I did feel like it was a bit. I didn't like the childishness of George and Todd.
I know.
And there was lots of really infantile bickering going on through this week. And I think that especially the character of Todd isn't like that.
I don't know.
I think that this story could have worked better if they weren't so, like two kids in a playground. And I was like with Eileen, just rolled my eyes at bits of it. But anyway, so
I just want to say about the funeral. I also think that if they don't have Glenda in her black hat helping, that would be missing a trick, because I think she looked glorious in that. And when she first came in, that was the first sort of way we met her, wasn't it?
What about Mary dressed up as Marlene Dietrich?
I don't think it's going to be a fancy dress funeral.
When Mary came in dressed as that on Friday, I was like, oh, here we go. Mary being silly again. But actually, I quite enjoyed it, because it was only about 20 seconds that she was in, wasn't it? Nobody recognised who she was, and then she walks out upset. Do you remember when Rita did a Marlene Dietrich act once? Yeah. I've got nothing to say about it, but she's also been heard.
Remember that, everybody.
So Monday's episode, George is getting ready to go to work in the morning, and he finds this the Rest Easy business card kind of pops out of his pocket somehow, doesn't it? Like he's taken out a hanky. I can't remember how it happens. Todd spies him, then throwing it into the bin, and when he's left alone in the lounge, he fishes it out and finds out what's written on it. So this is something that happened a few weeks ago when Troy, the boss at Rest Easy, tried to poach Todd over to him, and George understandably kept stum about it, because he wants the best young funeral director of the year working on his patch. I think everybody thinks that this award he's got is bigger than it actually is. Todd's like saying, hey, look at my cardboard gold coffin that I've got here. This means something. Well, it doesn't really. You can get awards for anything these days.
When it comes to funeral directors, you go to the nearest one.
Yeah.
You don't go, well, who's the most award-winning funeral director in the local area.
No, this award's where two people were. There were only two people that were up for the award, and my one's the one that won it. So yeah, I'm going to keep hold of you. But anyway.
But if you're listening and you are an award-winning funeral director, I want you to know
we're proud of
Michael and I are really proud of you.
Yeah. Glenda gets talking to Todd later, and because he's saying to her, "Look, your brother has been really controlling at the moment," and she says, "Look, just talk to him about it." So they kind of have a conversation when George gets back home, get back late from a house call later. Todd's kind of angrily cleaning a car bonnet or something, isn't he? Because George should have been back ages ago, and he says George tries to lighten the mood of the conversation by getting Todd talking about what sort of coffin he'd want to be buried in, and Todd says, "Oh, well, yeah, I'd like one with a picture of me on."
Is that what he really said?
Yeah, and I hear rest easy do them at a better price than we do.
Oh.
Is that a thing?
A picture on your coffin?
I've seen them in the graves, and again, no offence to anybody
on a gravestone,
and no offence to anybody who has this, but I don't like those myself.
Well, you don't have to have one.
I
or maybe I'll get you one.
Just the words are good for me.
The picture, having a picture on your coffin is a bit like what the Egyptians did, isn't it?
Oh yeah.
Because the whole thing was like, this is what this person looks like. No need to open it, and we were like, nope, think I will anyway. Want to see what's in here?
So George is not impressed to hear his rivals being brought up again. And Todd later on meets up with Troy in the bistro, and Troy definitely seems interested in having him on his under his employ. But Todd's like, no, I'm not making any commitments to this yet. But he does ignore a phone call from George, which shows that he's somewhat interested.
Interestingly about this with Troy trying to poach Todd on the basis of him winning this award, Todd only won the award because he told the funeral award givers that he thought that commercialising the business of funeral directors was bad.
Yeah, he did.
And he was sort of like mirroring George's ethos of customer first.
Yeah, when he was going through his interview, he kind of said, "Oh, hasn't Todd changed?
Yeah,
he's not in it for the money anymore." But I think some of what he's done this week, he's maybe felt a little bit guilty.
A lot of this
he mostly seems to be moving over to Rest Easy, not because of their business values or anything, but because he's just annoyed at George.
Well, also I think with Todd, there's a bit of spitefulness of, well, if you think I'm like that, then I'm going to be as like that as I can be, you know? If you think I'm a cutthroat capitalist, then I'm going to be the most cutthroat capitalist there ever was.
Yeah.
And take that.
Yeah. So anyway, a coincidence of the episode on Monday was George coming into the bistro and seeing the two of them together, and he's livid that Todd's shown such a lack of loyalty here, and they start arguing, Troy steals away the client that George had come into the bistro with. So things have calmed down later, and they realise that Troy's gone off with George's client, so he hurries off. They carry on arguing at home later. There's just so much arguing with this week. So honestly, they need to start a podcast, don't they? George is so betrayed about it. Yeah. And Todd says, well, I've got my award, so you need me more than I need you. I would think that the name Shuttleworths carries a little bit more clout to it than some rubbishy award, don't you think? Well, this is a family business that's allegedly been going back over 100 years.
Yeah, and also
that means something.
I think there's a bit of kudos if we're going to pretend that anybody cares about young, what is it?
Funeral
director of the year. Then there's a bit of kudos in training the young funeral director of the year.
Yeah,
and then George could say that, couldn't he?
Oh, you might have done. You never got anywhere without me.
No. I mean, like when you're promoting your business, you could have said,
"Oh, yeah.
we trained whatever." Yeah. I don't think anyone cares.
No. So anyway, Wednesday they have more of a bicker over breakfast. George stomps out to work because he's originally saying, "Oh, I still got to work with you for 4 weeks," and George's like, "Well, consider yourself on gardening leave." So he goes off.
Imagine getting time off just to Work on your garden.
Then they have that scene later, don't they, where Todd's on the phone to this guy from yesterday saying, "Oh, I'm so sorry you had to witness this. Honestly, we're very discreet," or whatever it was that he was saying, and you're led to believe that he's trying to woo him back over to Shuttleworth, but then it turns out no, he's working for Rest Easy. And George is like, well, I hope you two are going to be very happy together. So Glenda's chatting with George in the pub later. He's looking a bit maudlin. And says, look, am I stuck in the 70s? And she's like, no, wait, you are a little bit old before your time. Maybe the business needs a bit of a zhuzh, starting with a decent online presence. And he says, well, you could come and work for me. You seem to know
things.
You know stuff, Glenda. But she's like, no way. So then this turns into him trying to find somebody to work for him at Rest Easy, and he goes through Glenda. He tries to get Eileen there. I'd kind of like to see that. Eileen working in the funeral directors for a bit.
I think it would be...
Because she's so not suited to it.
Grumpy.
She says, I haven't got a compassionate bone in my body. That might make quite an amusing few scenes.
I'd love to see Eileen, forced to comfort some sobbing, hysterical person who's, hugging her and crying everywhere. And... perhaps we take the sting out of making fun of grieving people by being it's a cat or something. I don't know. But there's a lot of mileage, and Coronation Street is not afraid at all about making jokes with the Shuttleworths, and
no, God, no.
That would be amusing.
Well, all we got was Friday's episode, which was Mary being enlisted. Well, Mary kind of volunteers herself, doesn't she, to help out with George, and he's not really keen. But then they go off to a do together, which we don't get to see any of. Just the fact that it turns out that she's done an okay job, and George is kind of threatening to keep Mary on for good, but actually he's got no intention of it because, she's Mary. Yeah, exactly.
I love the idea of Mary working with George. It's going to be, and if Todd comes back, it's going to be like the old team at the florists. Don't you think that would be amazing?
I don't know.
I think Mary would be brilliant.
I think, this
could breathe new life into Mary as a character.
I think she's absolutely fine at the florists. I think that she's probably would be over the top too much. I mean, it's already, some people say that they touch on comedy a little bit too much with the whole setup with George and Todd. But I think that having Mary there would just be the last straw for some people. I think it would be for me. I don't need to see that. But I wouldn't mind Eileen, but I think Mary would be too much.
But the thing is, the reason it appeals to me is that I know that there's criticism about the jokes about the funeral directors, and sometimes it is directed at the people who are customers or the deceased.
Yeah.
But if we had Mary, then the jokes would be mostly about her, and it feels less problematic.
I don't know.
Do you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
To just shift the focus of the jokes being about, oh, so and so's a bit eccentric and Thingamabob wants this for the, wants the gold plated whatever.
I just think it's a bit of a moot point because Todd's going to be coming back at some point anyway.
Yeah,
he and George do work really, really well together.
But I miss Todd and Mary working together.
I thought that it was Todd and Tracy. That's who I kind of picture at the florist shop. I don't know. Was Mary there as well?
Maybe I'm wrong then.
Maybe it was both of them. I can't remember.
Normally.
I can't remember. But yeah, I just didn't particularly get on with this story because I thought they were being far too childish.
But if it was Todd and Tracy, then I just kind of want a bit more collaboration between the florists and Shuttleworths. Because that group, that trio of Mary, I'm sure Mary and Todd worked it there at the same time, and Tracy, but who knows? I think they would make a great dynamic, and it would be fun. Imagine having this would, I don't think this would ever happen in real life, but imagine where there would be like a weekly meeting where Tracy meets up with the funeral directors to go over what kind of flowers are coming up and stuff, and just how much bitching and complaining and sniping would go on.
Yeah,
it's kind of a
fun.
Similar dynamic between what used to be with Maria and David, where there's this very kind of easy relationship whereby they're so comfortable they insult each other without really, having an emotional impact on each other. Anyway.
Maybe.
Blah, blah, blah.
Ronnie's story, Gemma. This one...
Insider trading.
This was the one that I remember last week I was more into, you were less so. I didn't particularly enjoy it on Monday's one, but I am kind of interested still to see where it's going to lead to.
It's a business conversation.
Go on.
Debbie and Ronnie start the week reminding us the brewery is going to be bought out, and if they buy shares, they could make a mint. And Ronnie is a bit unsure about this.
Debbie's the one that's driving
She's
She's the most cutthroat.
And we already heard Ed saying he's not interested.
Yeah.
And Ronnie is helping Ed take stuff out of Skip, and Ed...
This is where Ronnie does his Ed impression, doesn't he? Do you remember? I can't remember what it is he says, but he does a great Ed voice. Do you a favour? Or something.
Yeah. Ed brings up the cottage renovations, that he wants to do that. And Ronnie says, look, you're not being ambitious enough. We should do the shares thing. We could make a killing. And he tries to convince Ed, but Ed says, no, I'm not doing it. And he says, oh, no, it's a gamble. I'm not interested. And I didn't put two and two together here until he said that if Ed is a recovering gambling addict, then getting involved in stocks and shares seems like an absolutely stupid idea.
Oh yeah, I think they made something of that last week as well.
I didn't even think about it until he brought it up himself. But yeah, you stay as far away as possible. Imagine if he gets hooked on it again, you could lose so much money on that. You said it like you have. Yep.
No.
Yep.
I don't understand how shares work, so I delete that app from my phone, the stocks one.
Yeah, I know.
Buy, sell. That's all I
think you should buy it when it's cheap and sell it when it's expensive. Ronnie says, talk to Aggie. I'm going to talk to Aggie about it. Ronnie's in the hospital later with Michael because there's a story later on about Cassie, which we'll tell you later. And he says he's just come to look for Aggie, and they sit down in A&E together while Michael waits to get his punched face seen to. And Michael says...
We should have done that other story first, really. It'd make more sense, but never mind.
Michael says, oh, well, you think this is bad. It's nothing compared to what Aggie goes through as a nurse, and the patients are really abusive and violent. So Ed finds Ronnie in the pub later, and Ronnie says, I've heard terrible things about the working situation for Aggie, and I'm going to tell you. And they're back at number 3, and Ed is very upset to hear about this, and he wants her to cut back on her working shifts. And Michael says, no, I thought this was a bit contrived. Michael's like, no, Aggie and I both work every minute of every day because we're scared that you will gamble again, and then we'll be poor and have to live in a worse house than this.
Yeah, it was all
felt
very
a bit silly.
The secret that Michael and Aggie have supposedly been having all these years
is that they've been working so that they have a nest egg for when he falls off the rails. Why not limit Ed's ability to ruin the family finances first, then make money?
Yeah.
Also, why is Michael... I mean, I know he lives with his parents, but he really should be making money to support his daughter, not his parents.
I know.
Anyway, yeah, that felt like a bit of a crowbar, didn't it? To try to make Ed feel guilty about and motivate him to try to
he kind of he
make
sort
more
of
money.
Tacitly gives Ronnie permission to go ahead with the shares thing, I thought, at the end of the episode.
Yeah, in the Rovers later, Debbie and Ronnie talk about this deal, and Ronnie's going to go ahead with it. And
he kind of is going ahead with it, but Ed doesn't know, and it's almost like Ed's burying his head under the sand about it, and whatever happens. But that's where we kind of left on Monday.
On to Wednesday, Ronnie tells Debbie, bought the shares. Debbie's like, hooray!
They're kind of walking down from Maudsley Street, aren't they, at the beginning of Friday's episode? It's like, is that the direction that the hotel is in? I don't know. Or was just a car park around the corner, maybe?
Well, Debbie looked fabulous, didn't she?
Oh, yeah, she did. She had a full-on outfit on, didn't she? A full-on, what was it, like a beige
jacket and trousers in a very pale pattern. She says, don't worry, Ed won't suspect a thing. Ronnie and Ed meet up in the bistro later to look over the paperwork, and Dee Dee jumps in and says, I'll have a look at it for you. Looks like not only is she the best damn lawyer in the whole north of England, but she's also doing their accounts as well.
Yeah.
And
well, she wants to, but Ronnie's able to get out of it.
Yeah, back at home, Ronnie's like, look, I don't think I've got somebody else doing the book, some mates' rates. And Ed's like, oh, well, Dee Dee should be doing it because she's family. And Ronnie says, I know what I'm doing. Don't question me. I'm the businessman out of the two of us. So Ed hasn't been running his own business for years. And he kind of insinuates that he doesn't want Dee Dee knowing his business.
Well,
but
no,
really
because
he means... but he's been quite upfront to Ed about, like, I think we should separate it a bit more. I mean, the irony of telling your brother that you should separate business from family... is quite funny, but
I'm just still a little bit confused about how much Ed does and doesn't know about Ronnie's up to, and Ronnie's talking to Debbie about saying, "Oh, Ed will never know," but he's put the idea up there. Surely Ed's not just forgotten about it.
Have I missed?
He was kind of on Monday's episode saying, "Well, I'm going to put the accounts over to you," which is giving him permission in a way to go for it.
Have I missed something, or was it stated? Is Ronnie using both their money or just Ronnie's money?
Oh yeah, that's the point. I think it must be just...
I don't know.
Just his money. I don't know.
I think the fallout's going to be bigger if it's both of their money. Because I'm, obviously thinking here, this is all going to go wrong, isn't it?
Yeah.
No, there's no way Ronnie's going to make 50 grand or whatever he thinks out of this deal. The fact he's being underhanded about it, the fact that he's using such a large amount of money, how excited he and Debbie are, you just know that something bad is going to happen. I wonder whether Ronnie's going to actually properly get in trouble because of it, though. Is this the beginning of an exit storyline for Ronnie Bailey? Does he get sent off to prison for his insider trading? Or Debbie never got in trouble about the whole fraud thing that she did.
I love how Debbie, with the bistro break-in last year, she's going to get Ryan to do all of this. She just sits back and say, "Oh, I didn't know." She's like, and then this year she's saying, "Oh yeah, I think you should do that," but she's not going to be the one that get in trouble. She's so insistent that nothing could go wrong. Why didn't she invest some of her money in Newton and Ridley shares? Well, yeah, that's a good question. I mean, the question is, in real life, how easy would it be to prove that that Ronnie had insider information? I don't know how you possibly would. I don't think you could. The link is that they had a meeting about it in a pub that his girlfriend owns. That's not illegal. No. I think it would be a bit tough, but I also don't know what the threshold is and how this is this tried in court? I don't know. Yeah, I don't know how it works. Would this be a court case? I don't know how. I wonder how soon it's going to happen as well, because probably in real life these kind of business deals would take months to get through, but in Corrie terms it could be mere weeks before Newton and Ridley is under different ownership. I don't know. It kind of makes me sad to feel that it's going to get new owners. And I'm still left with the lingering question that I had last week of how much does Henry know about this? Well, it's possible they're not going to end up with new owners. If we're kind of banking on the idea that this is going to go wrong, the easiest way of it going wrong is that Newton and Ridley doesn't get taken over. Yeah, that's true. But then what consequences does that have for Ronnie and Ed? Just that is Ronnie not going to be able to go forward with the business at that point? Well, I mean, you're not going to lose money on the shares because the shares are still the shares, aren't they? Yeah. There's still £25,000, so it's got to be something really bad happens to Newton and Ridley for this to maybe it's going to be something with old pervy Philip, and maybe the business takes a hit when something comes out about him being a massive lech. I don't know whether that's the sort of thing that can happen in business. I don't like business. I'm still really interested in the whole Newton and Ridley thing. My problem on Monday's episode really with this was the whole mixing up of Aggie's getting beaten up at work, yet Ed is apparently not known for all this time. He's one thing to have your head in the sand about your brother doing insider trading, but would he really not know that Aggie was getting hit at work? I don't understand why they went down that route with it, and not the idea of somebody just saying where Aggie's in bed because she's so tired because she works so hard. You don't need to be beaten at work to find it difficult to do lots of shifts. No, and I just don't believe that Ed would have no idea that she's getting beaten. Does she never speak to him? It just seems very unhealthy that we're supposed to just accept that Michael and Aggie
are sort of
conspiring,
piously suffering
Yeah.
through incredibly difficult working conditions purely on the basis of their fear that Ed will gamble again, and we're supposed to just accept that's a noble and good idea, that they're both not question them on it and say it sounds like you're both being a bit silly, to be honest.
We've been led to believe, as far as what it is in my head as well, where Ed and Aggie have got some of the most strongest relationship on the street. So to have all this secret, I'm not going to tell you something, and it doesn't really fit for me.
It was a bit hyperbolic, wasn't it?
Yeah, it really was.
We didn't need to jump to it kind of makes it sound like Aggie's been involved in some kind of NHS themed fight club to try to get money to stop Ed gambling.
The way that Friday's episode was left last week made it look pretty much like Ronnie was going to get these shares anyway. So a lot of what happened on Monday's episode to push him into getting
feeling like he had no choice.
Like it didn't.
But he didn't even seem to actually make a really concerted choice.
No,
he just kind of left it to his brother. So
yeah,
I just think we don't need to jump to the most dramatic way of telling every story.
No. What about having Dee Dee getting involved in Friday? Is that going to be anything? Like, it could have been quite exciting if she had ended up working for them, found out about it. Should I do the right thing here? She got herself in trouble when she knew something with the whole Sarah and Adam affair a few months ago. But now, she's not involved in it. So what was the point of that whole exchange on Friday?
Well, it still might be that she's the catalyst that gets them found out, because she might be like, well, why aren't I allowed to be involved in it? Or this might trigger something in her to find it suspicious.
Yeah, and I suppose the fact as well that the Stephen and Jenny story is warming up this week, and that's all kind of pubby stuff. Maybe that means that next week more will become clear, and it'll be be more of a major story then. I don't know. Just wanted, before we move on to the next story, give a bit of a shout out to Glenda making fun of Debbie's height as a fellow shorty. What was it, Glenda saying to Debbie? Oh, you should be stood up behind the bar if you want attention. Oh, you are. I thought that was great. And do you, anything you want to add about the editing of Chip eating on Friday's episode? Because you pointed out a bit of editing shoddiness there.
I was just being observant.
There was a scene on Friday where Ronnie's eating his chips, and one camera shot, he's got 2 chips on his fork, and then they cut to him from another angle, and he's just got 1 chip on his fork. It was terrible.
It was awful.
Who was responsible for that blunder, honestly?
Now, whenever people eat on Corrie, I always pay a lot of attention to it. Not because I'm trying to catch anyone out, but because I find it amusing how they take great pains to not actually put anything in their mouths. And I always used to think, and I'm sure lots of other people felt the same way, that they do it because they're actors and they've got fussy diets, or they don't want to put weight on, or any of those kind of things. It's actually because of continuity, because if they take a great big bite out of Ronnie spent the whole meal without once cutting into that lovely piece of battered cod he had in front of him, and it's because then they can't mix the scene up, or use a bit where the fish has got a big hole in it and then it cuts back.
Yeah, but it looks like old Winter can't resist a chip on a fork
I know, I was quite surprised he must have
imagine him eating it and then going, no, Winter, no,
don't eat that chip.
Now we need to find another chip that looks identical to your last one. Oh, screw it.
Where's the chip wrangler?
Right, Cassie come home story now. So this was an odd one as well this week. Not very much Evelyn in it, which was a bit of a pain. And I was kind of looking through the week still thinking, I kind of want to like Cassie, but it looks like they're definitely building her up to be somebody that I don't like, because she is in many ways very, very similar to Jackie Dobbs, who is a character I absolutely loved watching.
She's similar to Abby as well.
Yeah, exactly. So Jackie and Abby, both characters that I really enjoy. So I'm thinking, well, obviously I'm gonna like Cassie then. But as the week goes on, I'm thinking, oh no, she's very, very unlikable. I think that's on purpose. What's she up to? So we saw on the end of last week's episode, she still had some of those drugs in her handbag, didn't she? And she tells Tyrone on Monday that she's going across to the Citizens Advice Bureau, but actually what she's doing is going along to Villains Alley, where she meets up with Dean, who was, and I didn't even notice this when I saw it, but you pointed out, didn't you? This is Abby's old drug dealer, who she was having a lovely old time with before she gave birth to Alfie last year. I don't know I can't remember whether we know much about him other than he's just her drugs dealer, but nothing's been made of this fact yet. Clearly, at some point in the future, Abby's going to recognise him or something like that.
Well, this makes me wonder whether he might have a more significant role than we first thought, because who is it that Gary murdered?
Rick Neelan.
Rick Neelan was in the show for years as kind of a very low-key but persistent Corrie villain.
Yeah.
And then eventually he became a lot more significant until Gary ended up killing him. Is Dean going to end up in a similar way where we just get drip-fed him over a course of a few years, and then finally Coronation Street thinks, oh, we can do something with this character.
Maybe.
Or we need a character who's going to do X, Y, Z. Oh, look, Dean's already here.
Yeah,
we've already established him as a wrong-un.
I remember when we watched the episode last year where he was partying it on down in number 13, he felt like a bit more of a fun character. And, what was he doing? He was snorting drugs off of a picture of Jack Webster and everything. But he was having a good old time.
Well, everyone's happy when they're on drugs.
He definitely came across as being a not very nice chap in Monday's episode.
Well, it's because it's about money, see?
Yeah, he finds out that Cassie's not got any money on her and he pushes her down to the ground. And what are the chances of that? Luckily, somebody happens to be walking past to spot them. And this time it's Michael. Bizarre having Michael included in this story. Like, I assume he's going to have nothing to do with it in the future, but I don't know. He was there at that time and he takes Cassie to hospital and they get talking about kids, and she says, oh yeah, I've seen you with a little girl around, and he's like, oh yeah, that's Glory. Mum's not on the scene anymore. And she's like, okay, lovely. It's just trying to get rid of him, because I guess she doesn't want anybody that's living on the street to find out about the nature of what put her there, i.e. chatting with a drug dealer.
Well, she's not going to be asked that in the hospital, but the hospital might say, well, you seem to have a very high level of X, Y, or Z in your system, or have you taken any drugs recently? Which she, if you want the best care, you have to say.
Yeah. Michael is, because he's a nice chap, is determined to stay there and sit through with her. And he says, look, Pete, there might be support for women in situations like you. Oh yeah, what kind of situation? She's like, look, it looks like this guy's abusing you. And she just kind of glares at him and says, no, I just fell over. So Michael comes back from the coffee machine or something or other later, and Dean's turned up. He's got
to
into
continue the fight.
So yeah, basically for round 2.
It's like what's his Peter Griffin and the chicken.
Yeah, just like that. Michael intervenes, gets himself a punch in the face, and this is when Ronnie shows up from somewhere or other. He had said to Ed, was it, I think, earlier, I'm going to go and speak to Aggie myself, but it was another very well-timed coincidence at that moment that his nephew was getting punched in the face. That's when he walks in through the door. But anyway, luckily for Michael, he sees Dean off on his way, and he's like saying to Michael that you shouldn't be getting involved with this woman. So the one, I think, appearance of Evelyn we get this week is Roy's round the flat later, the precinct flat. Tyrone comes round because he's looking for his mum, doesn't want anything to do with Evelyn. And she's like, oh yeah, well, she's gone missing, has she? Not surprised. She's probably come here, caused havoc, and presumably now we're not going to see her for dust. And she better check the kids' piggy banks because she's probably raided those too. Well, she's wrong, because eventually Cassie eventually does come home, lies about why she's got this bandage round her wrist, and they just... I just had a bit of a rumbly tummy there. She's not pleased to hear that Tyrone's been round to see Evelyn, and that Evelyn has said that she's back on drugs again. He's like, I don't think that. She's kind of... she's intimidating him into not following his suspicions about her almost, isn't she? She's like being really like, you better not say anything bad about me. You better not think anything bad about me. Anybody says that I'm on drugs, you'd better not, Tyrone. You need to show me loyalty now. And you don't need anybody else. You don't need your nan. You don't need to phone up your nan to say that I'm back. It's just you and me now, kid. So Tyrone's in a bit of a difficult situation here. And also, obviously, the girls aren't here at the moment because they're with Fizz. So it really is just the two of them. And
only they still have that chinchilla.
I know. So on Wednesday...
The chinchilla would be like, Tyrone, don't listen to her. She's clearly high on smack.
Druggy. Cassie finds out about Jackie Dobbs a little bit. She gets a mention on Friday's episode.
Shout
Jack
out
and
to
Vera
Sal.
get a shout out as well. As Tyrone's there peeling potatoes, massive load of potatoes for what was it, a shepherd's pie? Or
It was a
he's
very
making?
shallow shepherd's pie for the amount of potatoes that he peeled.
Maybe he's freezing some. Maybe he's being practical and doing lots
Oh,
of
that's a good idea.
lots of meals at a time. That sounds like the sort of thing that Tyrone would do.
Tyrone loves batch cooking.
She says, why don't you invite your mates round so I can get to know them? So he brings round Abby and Kevin, which gets her back up because Abby brings up the fact, I used to be an addict. Doesn't mean I love my children any less. And Cassie's like, did you just bring her around to try and guilt trip me about my druggy past? No,
She doesn't want to be lectured to.
No, she doesn't.
Patronised.
Yeah.
But she also is still a drug addict.
Yes. Abby leaves
Awkward.
and tells Cassie, look, just go easy on Tyrone. He's a good man.
Well, I thought Abby was... this showed how much Abby has matured as a character, didn't it? Like,
Yeah.
she's very emotionally mature here, and she's not making it about herself.
She's not trying to hide her
sympathising
past.
with Cassie and trying to give her support, and she's not taking it personally when Cassie rejects her. And
Yeah.
good job, Abby.
Nothing yet has been made about them sharing dealers, but I'm sure that's still to come. They've got
The
the
fact
link
they've got
there.
Abby in the story and they're using
Yeah.
Dean is makes it feel like inevitable
Absolutely.
face off somewhere.
So once they've gone, Tyrone says, look, sorry, I didn't mean for that to happen like that. Cassie is just... She's making him nervous, saying, what are you doing bringing her around? Tyrone is obviously desperate to cling on to his mum that he's never known. And
I think this was really good writing because this is showing Cassie's manipulation
that's it. She's
that
been mega
Evelyn's been
manipulative.
talking about all this time. And Tyrone has not really realised what she's doing. She is, really manipulative and emotionally, I think it's really clever.
I think maybe he is noticing it, but he does see the best in everybody. And he's
he wants a
thinking, look,
relationship.
I want a relationship with my mum.
Well-
Maybe she'll relax, maybe she'll calm down, maybe I can change her, maybe
Because if you
she's
think-
just on edge because of her background.
If you think about it, right, Tyrone has had two previous mother figures. He had Jackie, who's dead. Mm-hmm. He had Vera, who's dead. And now he's got a third mum, and this is his real mum.
Yeah.
And he's desperate for a connection. He's trying to... they haven't really said this in the show, but this feels like his motivation. Like, he's got a third chance now of having a mum. And... he would do anything really to make this okay.
Well, I'm seeing kind of shades of the relationship between him and Kirsty at the moment because she was there clearly abusing him. He knew that he was being abused, but he was putting up with it for the sake of the daughter, for the sake of their marriage, because he thought that, it's not your fault that you're doing this to me.
Yeah, he was being he was trying to be a good person.
Yeah.
And absorb some of the abuse.
So I don't know where this is going necessarily. I'm less sure than I had been before that Cassie's going to be sticking around the show. It feels like she's just going to be coming in to do a bit of a guest spot, if you like, and then disappearing after
That's sad because
manipulative ways.
I think Claire Sweeney's doing a fantastic job, and I'd love to have her in the show permanently. But yeah, like you say, it doesn't feel like there's a place not because she's manipulative, but because she doesn't have anywhere to live. And I think we talk about this later, don't we? About are we going to talk about sets and things? But
I don't know.
Oh, well, I'll just say it now then. We were talking in the car again when we were going camping, and I realised that in Coronation Street, if you want to be a major character, you have to have these bits are obvious. You have to have a job, don't you? Or you have to have a relationship.
Yeah.
But the other really important thing you need is a set of your own. And there are some characters, like for example Toya, who doesn't have any of those things at the moment, and that is to the detriment of her character, and that's why she doesn't appear as much as she used to. Somebody like Tyrone's mum, Cassie,
yeah.
she doesn't have...
Well, she does, though, because she's got the precinct flat, and it's like they've designed a whole set for her.
Okay, so there you go, then. She could be a permanent character, because we do need people like this who are antagonistic and kind of a villain. We don't really have that kind of thing permanently, so I'd love to see her do that.
But she is the sort of person that Corrie likes to take the rough edges off once the initial storyline has gone. I don't think that she can stay around if she's like this. Like, I don't know whether Jackie Dobbs would have worked as a permanent character. She's much better somebody coming in, causing chaos for a little bit and then going off again. But
I really like Cassie. I hope that she does stay. But, you know, they have given her a set. But, you know, say she's only on a year contract or 6 months or whatever. Why don't we give that flat to Toya?
Could do.
Toya needs a set.
Tyrone and Cassie end the episode on Wednesday, was it? I think, yeah, having a 2 minutes quiet sit. They say, look, we're coming on too strong. Maybe we need to take this having a relationship slower. Let's just sit and enjoy each other's company, sipping our tea for 2 minutes, and the camera pans away, and then we don't see them again. So, as far as we know, they're probably still doing it.
Well, I thought this was a really interesting scene, because clearly Cassie has a level of emotional intelligence, and she's desperately trying to build this relationship with Tyrone, but she kind of switches from that being a priority to drugs being a priority, which is totally what an addict would do. But she's obviously got, like, she's not being clumsy about it. That's the thing what I'm trying to say. There have been loads of storylines where some estranged parent has come back and has kind of clumsily tried to rebuild a relationship in a really ham-fisted way that's backfired on them. Whereas Cassie, you know, her sitting there saying, we should spend 3 minutes just in each other's company in silence just to grow comfortable with one another. That's a really, really emotionally advanced thing to say. Don't you think?
Yeah.
So the fact that she is also manipulative makes me think she's going to be very dangerous for Tyrone, because she's got the intelligence to be able to really get under his skin, and maybe she might even, when Fizz comes back, try to interfere in that relationship.
Yeah,
the way that other people have done before. And it could end up with, you know, maybe them splitting again. I don't know. But I just think Cassie's very dangerous because she is so clever.
Yeah. Fizz can't come home soon enough.
And she's very selfish as well, obviously.
Speaking of redheads, let's finish this off with the old Jenny story. Well, it started off being Lily's story because it's her birthday, isn't it? She's 10. I can't believe that Lily's 10. Aww. 10 years we've had her on the street. If you to ask me how old she was, I'd be like, 5? It's crazy how the time has passed.
I was upset that she didn't get any football themed birthday presents. She got a makeup kit. That's all we saw.
Did she? I can't remember. I wasn't really paying
attention. I was expecting, you know, because obviously she's super into the Lionesses when the team won the Euros, and we made it all the way to we did, you know, I was one of the
yeah, you were just waiting on the bench to be called up, weren't you?
I was like, well, never let me on to play, it's not fair. Anyway, got all the way to the World Cup final. You'd thought that Lily would still be inspired by her footballing passions enough
she doesn't care anymore now that they didn't win. They let her down in the final, didn't she? I mean, she didn't want anything football related.
Well, it's not like she could have got a Mary Earps kit, could she? Because they won't sell them, will they?
Anyway, so it's Lily's birthday. Max has passed his GCSEs. Apparently he did more than just English with Daniel. So they're having a big old Platt celebration on Friday, which Stephen's trying to dodge by going to a wine tasting afternoon thing, which he really is just an undercover way of getting Jenny to go on a bit of a date with him. But they make a big thing about saying it's not a date, but Jenny's definitely quite excited. Her heart's all set aflutter by being invited out to this thing by Stephen, isn't she? And but unfortunately, when David comes in and speaks to Stephen, says, no, you do need to come along to Lily's party, actually. And Jenny
There's nothing Lily would want more. Yeah,
Jenny has to reluctantly agree to go along with it. So she's dragged along to this thing. Oh, go on.
I loved how laissez-faire Stephen was about this, because he didn't even have a card.
No, I know.
He was like, I better go buy a card.
I loved everything to do with this party. You got...
Oh, it was fantastic.
Shona with just, how many lines did she have in the episode? 3 or 4, but completely stole the scene where she was talking about her cider and...
Well, she also kind of, when she walked in, she didn't have a line, but she mouthed like...
Oh yeah, when Jenny walks into the party, Shona's like, oh, that's Jenny. Oh, it's like she's just loving the gossip.
But,
me
and Shona both love cider, and I will not have any more slander from Coronation Street trying to besmirch the glorious drink that is cider.
Well, you, Shona and Abby can all go and share a bottle together down the precinct.
Jenny's not above it. She used to be a Pom Delight girl.
Well, she's in denial of this. She tells, I can't remember who it was, I've not drunk cider since I was 15. It lies. You've advertised cider when you're older
You must
than
have
that.
drunk
I'm sure
it.
you had a sly little drink of it.
Let's not pretend, Jenny.
They also bring up in that getting ready for the party scene Audrey and her equity release that Stephen took out on the house last year, and Audrey thinks it's a massive scam. Well, she's wondering, she's a bit worried, and everybody else is telling her, no, Gran, just ignore it.
Can I ask you, what is going on here? Did Stephen do the equity release?
I think he must have done.
So she's getting correspondence from them regarding this, and she doesn't realise that this is actually legit, and David's assuring her it's all a big scam, saying don't talk to anybody on the phone about it. So it's all going to come out, surely.
I'd kind of forgotten that this bit of the storyline had even happened, because they're coming on a year since he took that.
But what did he do with all the money?
Because he was going to... I don't know. I've lost track of it. But at least they're bringing it up again. And
well, they need to explain it to us.
I assume it's going to be explained, because I do kind of need this at the moment.
A bit goldfishy.
So anyway, Jenny comes in. David's comment being, it's one up from Tim's mum. gave me a good laugh. And anyway, it turns out that Jenny has a lovely time at the party.
Oh, she looked like she was
just
enjoying being around the family.
Wasn't she? Yeah.
The Platts are the funnest family.
Yeah, because everything goes wrong, and Lily spills pop over the table, and David's there mopping it up, and Shona says to Jenny, welcome to the family. And you're right, she just looks like kind of happy. Not just that she's there on Stephen's arm, because she says, we don't need to go to the wine tasting, do we? I'm enjoying this here. I thought it was really, really lovely. And just, is that probably the first time that Jenny's even had a scene in that house?
Probably.
What's the point of ever having her in there? But it just felt lovely. This is why I love it when characters who don't often have anything to do with each other, they just put them in a room together and see how they spark, and this one really, really, really worked for me. I'm
sure that Jenny is perfectly content with her situation. She's got her stepdaughter Daisy living with her. She's got her pub, etc., etc. She's got great friends, but we all remember her backstory was that she had a child that drowned. And up until that point, she had a kind of really nice family life going on, because she had her husband, her stepdaughter, and a baby, and then it all got taken away from her. And there's probably bits of her that miss having a group of family members and that kind of closeness, and she's sitting there kind of on the periphery, but she's being welcomed into the situation, and it's probably... I would love it. This would be my dream.
Yeah, it was nice. So I think the fact that this was brought together on Friday's episode means that Stephen and Jenny's relationship is hopefully going to be a big part of next week.
I'm really excited as to where this is going, because you've been talking about Stephen being behind the bar at the Rovers as though you are the secret producer of Coronation Street.
I've been talking about this for 6 months.
Obviously we have no idea where this is going, but I would absolutely love it if that prediction came true. And Stephen just being an evil landlord. There's no particular need, because at the moment everything seems okay for the Rovers, although Newton and Ridley buying it doesn't necessarily solve all their problems with we don't have enough money, we don't have enough punters. But yeah, I think that maybe he's going to set his sights on that. He has shown before that he's interested in the money side of the Rovers and not just Jenny, but he definitely has got the hots for... And I want to say,
Connor.
Good looking couple.
Yeah, I know.
They look great together.
Hang
on. No, you've just scrolled past.
What did I scroll past?
The other thing, the reason why I mentioned, we're going to talk about the sets later, is because I was saying that obviously the Barlows are the oldest family on the street, and they really should be the main family, but the Platts seem like they get way more family time, and they're a more iconic family of Corrie because they have a bigger set than the Barlows. The Barlows only have Ken's front room.
Yeah.
And that's way too small for them to film a large number of Barlows in there at one time.
It does feel a little bit cramped when they're in there sometimes.
But the Platts, they've got that knocked through kitchen, front room, dining room situation.
Well, it's not knocked through. It was always like that because their house was built so much later.
You can see all the way through.
Yeah. But you're right. They could do that with the Barlows.
The
because
Barlows,
they've done it with number 3, haven't they? And suddenly the what used to be Emily's house, which always also felt very small, is suddenly open and much more conducive to having more people together in a scene. So they could do that.
That would be a really simple way to rejuvenate the Barlows and get more Barlow scenes, is to just make the set bigger.
I can't remember, like, who's still living there at the moment. Is it Tracy, Steve and Ken are living together there? And Amy? Yeah. Well, mate, I don't see anything like that happening to that house until Ken's gone.
No, but I think it'd be nice to do it before Ken goes. Because I want Ken to be the heart of the Barlows and I want Barlows to be the heart of Coronation Street. But I also want to make it clear that I love the Platts and I'm really happy how many great Platt scenes we get. And the Platt family is just so fantastic. I love watching them. All of them are brilliant. I love all of the Platts.
Yeah, it was good to have them back in this.
There's not a dud Platt. I know that some people don't like Lily because she's little.
I mean, I'm gonna say yeah,
but you can't fault her for that because she's not had very much screen time. But even Lily, I love Lily. I think she's great. I wish they made more about her liking football for her birthday. And I just want to say, I did look up. You can now. Nike's done a U-turn on Mary Epps and they're now going to sell her shirt. It's good. It's a travesty.
I don't know what you're talking about.
I know you don't.
Right, what are we scoring this week's Coronation Street? We watched it. We watched Mondays on Mondays, and we back-to-backed Wednesday and Fridays yesterday, didn't we? I was definitely feeling a bit down about Mondays, and the other two were all right. I think yesterday's was the best.
Fridays.
I loved all the. I thought the Pride stuff was fun. Definitely the Ryan storyline and the Paul storyline, which were the two main ones, were what kept me most interested. I was just left with a bit of a bad taste in my mouth with the George and Todd story and about how infantile it's getting. And I wasn't as engaged in the Cassie and Tyrone stuff as I thought that I would be. Just for this week, because like I said, I wanted to like Cassie and this is obviously making it difficult purposefully to like her.
Yeah.
I'm going to score this one 3 graduates from the University of Death out of 5. What about you?
Well, who's your character of the?
I don't know. I suppose Paul is the most obvious one to go with here. But is it because I feel sorry for him, or is it? Am I saying Ryan because he's, doing a bit? He's not just sitting around wallowing in poverty. He's doing something about it. Getting his kit off. I don't know. Maybe even like Peter was quite good this week in the way that he handled Ryan's situation and Ryan having a go at Carla and just being very chill about it on the whole, but stern, very like cool. You said. Debbie was great. Glenda was great. Shona was fantastic on Friday.
What about Licorice Black?
I'm not. Didn't even get a line.
I mean, at least Pedo Van Man had a line.
Yeah.
Didn't he? Come into my van? I can't remember. It's been so long.
I am going to give Character of the Week this week to... I'm gonna give it to Ryan. I think Paul was just a bit silly going off without permission. Without telling anybody. And there'll be plenty more time in the future for picking Paul, I'm sure. So Ryan for me. I enjoyed where the story's going.
I'm going to give it 3.5 premium subscriptions to Ryan's Ovid account. And I think Ryan is my character of the week. He's a bit naughty, isn't he?
Yeah, he is a bit, but he's doing what he can to help pay back Carla and Peter.
I'm sure Carla would rather not have the money and not be punched.
Yeah.